Hey, what's going on? Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another Friday, episode 172 of Heavy Metallurgy. We're plugging right along. Slow and steady wins the race. Alan, how are you? How have you been?
Doing pretty good. Just working through the dog days of August, school starting back up and all that stuff. But yeah, not a bad week overall, really. And glad to be here on another Friday night with you and our special guest who's returning. And yeah, we'll have a lot of fun. Hello to everybody in the chat who's starting to file in. Yep, there's Melanie's there, Ian's there, Viking Skull. Tim, good to see you. Missed you Wednesday night. You weren't in the chat Wednesday night. Where were you Wednesday night, Tim? You weren't where you were supposed to be.
He showed up late. He was late. He didn't do his homework, and he was late. He felt tardy on that one.
I left just a little early, so we passed each other. Ships passing in the night.
Right.
But yeah, thanks to everybody for hopping in the chat, hanging out with us for a while tonight to talk about some cool heavy metal stuff.
Best community on the web.
Yes, they absolutely are the best community on the web. Our first order of business is to let this community know what kind of things they might want to purchase this weekend if they head out to their local record store. Not a huge list this week, I don't think, Marty, but what's out there that might interest folks?
Well, a lot of this stuff, I have no idea what it is. So, in fact, all of it. I haven't heard any. Well, there's one band. Okay, here we go. August 16th, new releases in the metal world. Avernus, Grievances on M Theory.
Okay.
Berenice EP, APF. I don't know what that is. Blind Monarch, The Dead Replenish the Earth on Dry Cough. Dark Tranquility, End Time Signals on Century Media.
Mm-hmm.
Isrigan Abart on Massacre. Extinction AD to the Detested on Unique Leader. Falling in Reverse, Popular Monster on Epitaph. Hail Darkness, Death Divine on Vatican. Ritual, The Story of Mr. Bogd, Part 1 on Charisma. Two Stone Jesus releases, The Harvest re-release and Seven Thunders Roar re-release on Season of Mist. Thermality, The Final Hours on Black Lodge. Thought Crime, Connection Anxiety on Prosthetic. Trench, Between Inverted Worlds on New Damage. And Ulva Hunger Retaliation. Is that spelt right? Darkness Shall Rise. Anything I missed?
Let's see. Just one or two I'll mention. Vile Rights, really good death metal band out of California, has their first full-length album called Senescence out today. And not full albums, but a couple of bands do have singles out that people might be interested in. Arab Altar has released a new single, and so has Black Braid. Yeah, there's a lot of bands gearing up to release albums later in the month. So some of these bands, you may see something coming out soon. Black Braid's not planning on doing anything until 2025, but they did get a single out. But yeah, short list for this week. Expect a much longer list around August 30th, probably. It looks like this is one of those months where everybody kind of saved their releases until the very end. Probably because they know that's when most people get paid, and they can suck up your money as soon as you get that paycheck.
Yep. Oh, and for anybody that wants to see, Alan had some reviews posted today. If you want to see visual evidence of his sick little monkey, that made the cut. So check that out. But yeah, I think we got it all covered. Let me turn this thing off here, and we will get our guest out. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's get him out here. He's waited long enough.
He's been up all night waiting for this. So welcome back to the show, Roger Kjørvik from Norway. How you doing?
Great to have you back.
I'm doing good. I do have had a couple of hours sleep, so it's not too bad for me. So
good. I feel so bad asking anybody from overseas. I want more people on, but it's just like, there's only some people that are cut out for the all night thing. Roger is thankfully one of them. So
Roger is a trooper. Absolutely.
They want to be on the show, so it's kind of you're not forcing anybody.
What's been going on over on your channel for those that maybe have never watched your channel? Now you got a lot of new people in the chat lately, which is awesome. Cheers to all of you folks. What happens over on your channel?
Mostly it's collection updates. I mean, that's my main thing. I sometimes, if I have time or I kind of don't get a new stuff in, it's gonna be like going back into my small collection behind me. And pulling out stuff. So I do have. There won't be a shortage of things to show, but mostly I don't like to do too much videos, but also some response videos when other channels are celebrating a new number or milestone in the. So there's also that happening.
Awesome.
And by the way, when it's talking about new releases, that Black Braid song, I think it was an Abbott cover.
Okay.
They released a cover for the first single?
I don't know if it was the first single, but I think I saw them put out a Abbott cover.
I'm going to guess it's a placeholder single since the new album's sounds like it's a good 9 months out.
Also, Horna did a new single.
That's right. Forgot that one.
Yeah.
The new Horna record is really good. I listened to it today. It's really good.
Yeah, that was a good song. So
yeah. All right. Well, it's good to have you on. Thank you again for joining us. Always a pleasure. Always looking forward to having you back. And the three of us decided that it was best that we just picked a year to talk about. Yeah. We're kind of into the 2000s now, which is certainly a different type of climate from our usual year selections. It's things maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think about the 2000s? I mean, there's still great metal every year. I'm going to stand by that. But looking over 2001 for me, it was like, there's some killer shit here. I picked some great stuff, but I don't know if it's, stand the test of time type stuff. What do you think? We'll start with you, Roger. What do you think about that?
No, I kind of, yes, as I said, there were some really good albums there, but it wasn't a lot of like bangers, and a lot of the good bands that we follow in the 90s were most of them dead and buried, really. But there was kind of a new wave coming in at kind of the beginning of the 2000s with different styles, more modern sounding death metal, as we call it, and also black metal had kind of a startup again a little bit with some bands. But it was not easy. But I mean, I pulled out some really good albums, but it wasn't like I had to, choose some, pick half of the stack. It was more like I could pull all the good albums and still have a manageable size. So it was a weird time, and also for me personally, it was like the end of the 90s and the first couple of years of 2000 was a period where I didn't explore as much music. I kind of I was tired of it all, and all the good bands have turned to shit. Black metal was like either symphonic or bands started to be or just stopped playing. So it was kind of a dead period in metal for me, at least. Awesome.
What about you, Alan?
Yeah, 2001 is kind of a weird time frame for metal. You had just had Iron Maiden come back the previous year and make a big splash. You don't necessarily have anything similar to that in 2001. You have Judas Priest release what's considered one of their worst albums of all time. So it kind of went the other way there. And like Roger was saying, black metal's in a little bit of a weird place. That big surge of interest that happened around 97 had kind of wound down a bit. Death metal is out of vogue in 2001. There are still good releases from these genres, and I'm sure we'll see multiple good examples as we go through them tonight. But it's sort of an odd mix of things, in terms of what was popular among the masses. These are like new metal years. This is Limp Bizkit kind of territory and stuff. So we were all kind of hunkering down for avoiding that stuff, I suspect. For me personally, 2001 was a very busy year. I was in grad school. I spent a lot of time in the lab. Met some really good friends that year, people I'm still in touch with. So had a lot of fun hanging out. I still hit the record stores very regularly in 2001. There were some great record stores in North Carolina, close to campus. So, I was seeing new releases, checking things out. But the selection's a little odd. It leans in some directions I wouldn't have guessed when we first agreed on 2001. So some genres make it a little more represented than others. But it was a little bit of a kind of an odd year and odd timing for heavy metal. And like you said, Marty, doesn't mean there aren't good records from this year, but they come from some different places. It's not all black and death metal dominated the way some people might assume when they think, early 21st century. So that's my take on it. Marty, what's your kind of take on 2001 overall?
Yeah, it was just really strange pulling up the list to look and see what came out, because I was still, I think I was done or just about done with Maniacs the first time. Worm Gear was just about wrapping up for me. I think we put out the last issue this year or the year before. I don't remember exactly. But I was still fully invested in getting as much as I possibly could in here. And going back and looking, I suddenly remember the fact that, the 90s was dominated for me by Norwegian black metal. I loved it. I loved the sound. I loved the style. All the Scandinavian styled stuff, even though Sweden and Norway obviously had different types of characteristics. But looking at the 2000s, I see albums up by Zyklon. And I'm reminded that Norway, they didn't keep it true as far as I'm concerned, as far as the black metal stuff goes. I mean, there's bands like Tolka that came in and they're still flying the flag of black metal. But you look at bands like Zyklon, it seemed like the Norwegian scene splintered into like this modern, technical, turbocharged death metal that was super clinical. It was like a more death metal version of Emperor's Prometheus. I just could not. I didn't like it. I didn't like where it was going. I didn't want death metal to be more clinical, cleaned up and polished, and fake drums and the clicky. Just everything about it. So I mean, at this point, I was digging deeper and deeper into black metal. I got quite a bit of stuff here. Some it's kind of undergroundish. Yeah, a lot of it's undergroundish. I still would maintain I have a few death metal things in here. Some power metal stuff. I mean, I had my finger in a lot of pies, but it just the darker side of black metal was starting to really take over, and I was so burnt out on death metal still. It just and looking at the list, there wasn't a great showing for death metal. I found a couple cool things, but black metal was still dominating. Wouldn't you guys kind of agree? I mean, it was weird. Black metal was kind of going in different directions, but it was still very much in the public eye. What do you think? Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah, like you and Roger said, I mean, it was kind of going in some different directions by this point, though, too. And some of those bigger bands, we'll mention, at least one or two of them. This was the last year we saw a couple of, the really big name bands put out something before disbanding too. So yeah, definitely a weird year for black metal.
Well, awesome. Let's I've got a bunch, so why don't we start? I'm sure you guys have a bunch as well, so why don't we jump right into this? Roger, where are you going to take us? What's the first on your list?
I'm going to start with a big name in black metal history. Darkthrone, Plague Wilder, which is a pretty good album. Not their best, but it's kind of actually one of the most kind of primitive black metal at that year, at least what I could dig out. Still a really good album. And the cool thing is kind of written in small letters here. It says also available on LP. So that just shows you that it was an era of CDs, which my collection.
I got an OG copy. I got when it came out. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yep.
Probably worth a little bit of money.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. But yeah, as this was kind of beginning of the end for my big love for Dark Throne. But this is a very good album, in my opinion. I listened to it a little bit to refresh my memory because it's been a while since I've listened to the later Dark Throne, or mid-era Dark Throne is really the right term for it. But yeah.
I found moments on that record to be a little more complex than they had been leading up to it. Would you agree?
There's starting to kind of change a little bit. Probably Fenris was tired of the whole thing, so he wanted to do changes.
Yep. Awesome. Good start. On my list as well. All right, Alan.
All right. Well, since we're kind of starting this with some black metal and some big things, we'll go ahead and do this one. It's already been mentioned in the chat. You get the fourth and last studio album from Emperor, Prometheus. This album, I missed it when it came out. I had gotten a little burned out on Emperor. It's not that I didn't like the previous albums. I felt some people were just running them into the ground. I realize this is a huge band for a lot of folks. They love the albums. That's fine. I did get sick of every time I turned around, somebody else just proclaiming Emperor to be, the band that, invented heavy metal and fire and the wheel. It got a bit much there for a while. So I just passed on this when it came out. And it's funny because this one, I think many people would rank it as their least favorite of the four studio albums. I think it's actually quite good, though. I'm not sure why people are sometimes a little down on it. Is it on the same level as the first two? No. Okay, I'm not going to claim that. But it's still a very solid Emperor album. I remember when I finally did check it out, I was just like, oh, wait, this is fine. I was kind of expecting it to be weird in some way, that like the band had drifted off into something very, very different. And again, it's not exactly like its predecessors. But no, it's not like they had, suddenly gone and tried to do something really overly melodic or overly somehow mainstream sounding. But so, this was kind of, Emperor's swan song. They didn't go out on their best note, but they didn't go out on a horrible note either. And the fact that it's, kind of the end of the line for Emperor, it goes back to what we've been saying so far here at the start of the show. You see some of the kind of, classic black metal stuff starting to phase out. Like Roger just said, it seems like Fenris, gets kind of sick and tired and Dark Throne's going to go into other directions. Yeah, Ishan's got other projects he's going to pursue. So Emperor's done. Mayhem were always slow to release albums. Varga's still, right in the middle of his prison sentence in 2001. So yeah, a lot of those, really big pillars of black metal from the 90s, yeah, they're in a way either changing or wrapping up shop or just on hiatus by 2001. But yeah, Prometheus, still a good album. If folks like Emperor and they just never checked this one out, absolutely you should. It deserves to be in the Emperor catalog, even if it's not Nightside, part 2. What do y'all think of Prometheus?
Go ahead, Roger.
And I think it's a good album, but again, a little bit too, I don't know, clinical or
procky.
Kind of too professional in a way. I mean, they're great
too slick.
musicians. It's kind of lacking that energy and nerve you needed in black metal, I feel. But it's if you look at it in a kind of musical perspective, it's a very well written album. It's a great, well done album in that regard. It's just, for me, it's too polished and it just lacks what I wanted in black metal, and a lot of the bands at that era did. They kind of lose the drive that was in the earlier days.
Yeah, in a way, in that sense, it almost reminds me of something like Testament's The Ritual, where the songs are well done and it's still definitely a thrash album, but it feels like the band has kind of lost some of that intensity by the time you get to that album.
Yeah, Marty, for me, that record, cold and clinical. And the thing I really, really like about all the early, the demo, the split with Enslaved, and then the first 2 full lengths, was how, even though it was very symphonic, world building sounding music, there was an organic feel at the core of it. It still had an of the earth or of the woods type of feel to it. It's just, you just could feel like you're wandering in the woods listening to that stuff. Very world building. And 9 Equilibrium had some good songs on it, but the writing was on the wall. The transition on that album was obvious that they were going to end up where Prometheus landed, and they were going in a direction I didn't want to go. Again, the Norwegian scene got very fancy. Mm-hmm. We'll just say fancy, because that's not good or bad. It just is, and
kind of covers it.
Yeah, it kind of covers it. And I liked folky, atmospheric, woodsy. I didn't like fancy. I'm a dog person. I'm not a cat person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at with that.
Me too.
Yeah. Cats are fine. People that have cats, yay, more power to you. But, yeah, I like my Emperor Catless. But all right. Well, speaking of world building, my first 4 or 5 records are all shit I listened to a lot. They all could have been contenders for best of the year. But I'm going to start with this. This is a monster record. I worshiped this project for many, many, many years, and that would be Summoning's "Let Mortal Heroes Sing Your Fame."
Mm-hmm.
I was geeked when I saw this on the list because I listened to the absolute crap out of this record, and I look at it and I want to listen to it again. This, for those of you who are not familiar with Summoning, it's a 2-piece project, drum machine, kind of martial industrial in the way the drum programming and the symphonic nature takes over, but it's completely set in Lord of the Rings, J.R. Tolkien's world, Middle Earth, and they do it very authentically. I mean, you watch those movies, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you wish that Summoning was the soundtrack, because it just wouldn't be. I mean, there's later albums, they do songs all in orc language. And I mean, and they do it right. It isn't half-assed. This is just very good world. This is the type of albums I would put on to escape, go into a different world, forget about the chains holding me in this plane. And this is an awesome album. It's really, really good. It's one of their best. And they've got a whole line of albums that you could say, wow, this is another one of their best. It's, again, the last song on the album is always the banger, Farewell. Yeah. It's just so over the top symphonic. The album before this, Distant Flame. No,
the album Dog
Stronghold.
Oh, you're right. No, sorry. Yep, Stronghold. Yep.
Yeah. The last song on that album, Distant Flame Before the Sun. Holy crap. I mean, they just know how to put the crescendo, the candle on top of the cake and light it. And wow, awesome record. This is 2001 sized up for me. I got this and I just couldn't stop listening to it. This is one of my top for sure.
Yeah. That's an excellent album. That one ends on 2 bangers, because Ashen Cold right before Farewell is incredibly well done too. Oh. It's a weird one. People complained about that album some when it came out, because it has a little bit more of a colder mechanical sound, I guess, particularly with like you mentioned, it's got almost that kind of martial sound with the drum machine. And some people seemed not to like that as much as the sound that they had on Stronghold. So I remember people being a little lukewarm on that album. I love that one. It might be my favorite Summoning album, but I never got the sense it was that popular with a lot of their fans. So cool to hear that you're really into it.
For sure. All right. Roger's back.
Root with the Black Steel.
Excellent pick.
Yeah. Czechia legends. This is one of my, if I'm going to rank this, it is a top 5 Root album for me. And there's some absolutely banger tracks there, like Necromancy. And I also dig the Liber Prohibitus, which is a weird song. And they have, as always, a lot of different. You have some more pure black metal, but you have a lot of kind of weird extreme metal going on with Root as always.
Yep.
A very unique sounding band, and if you haven't checked out Root, you should, because if you're looking for unique sounding bands, Root are one of those bands that really no other sounds like Root. So but yeah, Black Seal is one of my favorites. They did a couple of really good albums during this period of their career. So yeah, just a typical terrible 2000 cover.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, I mean,
The early 2000s, it's bad. It's almost bad universally. Anybody that chooses to go with computer-based art, it's bad. Yeah.
that
All
was
right.
the IA for 2000.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great pick. This is my favorite era of Root. And let's see, Corey, you just mentioned you've only heard the book. Black Seal is in that same style.
Yeah.
If you liked the book, you will probably really enjoy Black Seal as well. This was Root's best era for me, at least. I know some people really like the early stuff. I like some of the earlier albums, but right here around, Black Seal and the book, this is when they were really in their prime.
Thank you, Jay the Destroyer. You rule too. Yeah, Root for me, I have a handful of promos. I think the first one I heard was the book, and it reminded me of Moonspell. A darker, more underground version of Moonspell, but still very. Where are they from?
Check it.
Check. Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. They never fully click with me. I have a handful, like 2 or 3 promos, and I never really dove into them for some reason.
It's kind of because they are really wide in the spectrum of how they play the songs. It kind of takes a lot to get into Root, but I mean, some of the songs are easy and catchy and to get in. Others are really they're just weird. But a lot of the weird songs are kind of very growing songs for you that, hooks you in. At least me. I'm a big fan of Root in general. So, yeah.
Yeah, the albums can vary a lot too. I mean, you could hear, again, like I said, some folks love the first couple of Root albums and they don't like the Black Seal era as much, but it's very different. They changed a lot from album to album.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, you're up, Alan.
All right. Yeah. Great picks. Y'all taking everything out of my stack. I'm not going to have anything left here in 20 minutes. Let's see. What do we got next here?
Here's a new Korn record.
No, we ain't doing that. That ain't funny. That is not funny. But 2001, we there are 3 words that we must associate with 2001, and they are honor, valor, and pride.
Mm-hmm.
Bolt Thrower has the one album with the other vocalist, of course.
He does a good job.
And he does. He does really, really well. But folks, this is what the album unfortunately is remembered for. It's the one album where they had change out Carl. But yes, and I'm blanking on this guy's name. He's from Benediction.
It's Ingram.
Help. Ingram,
Dave
yes,
Ingram.
Dave Ingram.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, Dave Ingram sounds very good. He's similar enough to Carl that it's not like it doesn't throw you for a loop when you hear it.
Yeah.
But he's not trying to change his voice to sound exactly like Carl. And I think that's always a pretty good way to approach a vocalist change. Yes, similar, so that it's not sounding like the band's going in a different direction. And this album works very, very well. In fact, the opening track, Contact Wait Out, it's my favorite track on the last 3 Bolt Thrower albums. So just opens up. It is absolutely pummeling that main riff that kicks in when the song gets going. It's like having the mega tank that drives over the smaller tanks and crushes them flat. So you can use the flat sheets of metal to build another mega tank. It's just absolutely what you want in Bolt Thrower. The one thing I hear people complain about with the album that I think is fair, well, again, they complain about the vocalist. That's not fair. He sounds fine. The other thing folks complain about sometimes is the production here is maybe a little dry sounding. It's like, okay, I'll agree with that, but I don't think that's a deal breaker whatsoever. I can certainly deal with it. So yeah, you get good songs. You got a replacement vocalist for the one album, but he fills the role admirably. And you get a very good, very solid bolt thrower album. Is it going to knock any of the early classics off that upper tier? No. Does this deserve to be in the overall bolt thrower lexicon? Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with this one whatsoever. So, again, bolt throwers getting near the end of their career here, but they still had a quality album in 2001's Honor, Valor, and Pride.
Yeah.
Right on. 100%. All right. Well, I hope I'm not stealing any of Roger's thunder here, but this album,
Damn it.
endless loop for me. Endless loop.
I knew one of
This
you guys
is-
would pick it. I didn't even try to.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's showing the record here. This is the end boss of Absu for me. They had good albums before, they had good albums after, but this thing is 1000% their best work. With the original lineup, the power trio is still intact here. It's just, first of all, Proscriptor's drumming. You're not going to hear any tighter, faster, more innovative fills. His vocals are a lot more aggressive on this, which I really like. It still sounds like him, but on the album that came before it, he had kind of a, I don't know how to say this without sounding mean, but like an effeminate, like a drawl to it. He just didn't have a lot of power. He was kind of like shouting in a
He was singing very high a lot of the time on the
very
previous album,
high
too.
and without a lot of grit in his voice. I just didn't love his voice on that record. But Son of Tipperith is my second favorite by this band. This here, though, this Terra is absolutely crushing. Song from beginning to end, all the this is, kind of a concept record. And the bagpipes, the intermissions, it all works. It all feeds the story, feeds the vibe of this record. And the intros and outro stuff doesn't get old. It needs to be there. It's great. It's absolutely crushing record. Fast, blackened, Highland metal.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's a fantastic album. I do have the T-shirt on, and I, of course, pulled it myself. For me, the best U.S. black metal album ever to be released, and
impressive.
just a fantastic album. Big fan of Absu in general, but that album is just 10 out of 10 for me in that regard.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I knew folks would pull it. I've actually been playing Barathrum, their debut album, a lot this week. Kind of random.
Killer.
Yeah,
God, I haven't listened to that in a
different
long
style
time.
for sure.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard it in ages either.
It's more
I will-
deathy, isn't he? He sings lower.
Yeah.
Sings lower. Yeah, it's got a lot more of a death metal. There's none of the speed or thrashy, or not as much of the thrashy, speedy vibe that they developed. I'll say one thing in defense of Third Storm of Sithril, since folks are dumping on that one a little bit. Maybe it's not as good as Terra. It's an album that it's a tough listen. You've got to pay some attention to that album, or it will just blow past you, and it won't stick. But if you give it some time, really sit down and focus on it, it's a pretty good album. I like it a lot, but it is not something you can casually listen to and pick up on what's happening, because they're going so fast. And like you said, Mark, he's singing kind of high. He's singing just ridiculously fast, and it will just blur by. I had to spend a lot of time with that album to finally get it to click some. It is a very good album. There's a lot of good stuff going on in it, but it's easy to miss if you don't pay attention.
Highlander Tyrant Attack is, it's
that's a cool
great song.
track. Yeah, that's
Great
a killer
song.
track. So
and those two plus the Eyes of
Olnak or whatever. That's a great EP.
Yeah, well, those three, are kind of the Celtic trilogy that you were alluding to with it being a concept. He had those three releases as a trilogy, and then there were supposed to be the three Absu. That was a great idea to name records that way. That was supposed to be like another trilogy based on a different concept. So, but Sithril is better, I think, than people give it credit for, but I'm not going to claim it's better than Terra. I know that's everybody's favorite. And Ian, thank you so much for the super chat donation. Always good to see you in the chat, and hope you're doing well over there.
Thank you so much. All right. Roger's back. We all get talking. I forget where we're at. Here we go.
Yeah, but when we're talking about Absu and Tara, it's kind of,
It's a good thing.
yeah. Probably my second favorite black metal release of this year. Going to Finland. This is a promo, but Black Dawn, Blood for Satan.
Oh yeah.
I forgot all about that.
They have changed their name to True Black Dawn. So if you want to hunt down this album, it's under True Black Dawn. Terrible name change, but yeah,
I haven't listened to that album since it came out. I've totally forgotten.
I fucking love this album. It's so, I mean, the vocalist here is so fucking angry and snary and evil. The songs are kind of a lot of blasting fast, but I also have some, mid-paced kind of catching your breath stuff here as well. But I play this album 4 or 5 times at least every year, because it's just if I want some evil black metal from Finland, this is a really go-to album for me. I should pick it up on, but the kind of reissues haven't got this cool cover, so I stick with my promo
right
for now at least.
I'm gonna have to pull. I'm gonna write that down because it's been, like I said, it's sitting on the CD rack over there.
Yeah, but it's kind of just the opening track is so fucking, you just know what you're gonna get for the rest of the album. It's starting right smack in your face with energy and evil. Kind of where we talk about Emperor and stuff, like lacking, that's you get it in full with Black Dawn.
Awesome, good pick.
Yeah, I remember that one got a decent amount of chatter in 2001 when it came out. You saw it advertised in some places, and folks were checking it out. But yeah, I'd completely forgotten about that one. Good call.
All right, Alan.
All right. Well, we mentioned that death metal was kind of in a weird place around the turn of the century, but there were some interesting things being made in that genre as well. One of them being Goreguts. They had come back a couple years before this with Obscura, which melted everyone's brain, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. That album can be pretty polarizing. But 2001, they released From Wisdom to Hate, and it feels like they understood they had to reel it back in a little bit. I kind of think of this one as kind of like Obscura light. Which is not a bad thing. I don't mean it as an insult. It's, again, I think they were probably smart not to try to push Obscura any further. Those guys probably could have found a way to do it, but I don't know if they needed to do it. Run off the bat, this album is a good 15, 20 minutes shorter than Obscura. So it's a much, easier to digest length. And they're still doing all kinds of, crazy stuff. It's just not as crazy. The vocals aren't quite as insane. He's howling, but he's not howling like he's straight jacketed in the basement of an abandoned cemetery anymore. They're still bending all kinds of riffs and chords, but they're not bending them into non-Euclidean shapes that drive you mad like in some kind of H.P. Lovecraft novel. It's just everything's reined in a little bit so you can maybe focus and wrap your head around it a little faster rather than getting really lost in the chaos that's Obscura. And I like Obscura, just to be clear. I think it's a pretty brilliant album, but it is not an easy album to listen to. From Wisdom to Hate isn't a brilliant album, but it's an easier album to listen to. So there's a trade-off there. This one I kind of like. One little thing that sometimes gets lost, it is sort of a concept album. Most of the songs are dealing with different ancient civilizations, the rise and loss of kingdoms over time. And in the lyrics, at the start of every song, there's a little, a paragraph, a passage that kind of sets up the song. It's not something they necessarily sing, it's not part of the lyrics, but it kind of, definitely gets you, if you're reading along through the lyric sheet, it kind of, really helps, set the mood for the songs really well. Marty, you mentioned world building stuff, and it kind of gives them a little bit of that angle to the music, which I like. they're talking about, again, things like, ancient Acadia, Sumeria, all the typical things that most people would associate with, Indiana Jones or Lara Croft or an art history class. But I like the way they kind of, tied the songs together conceptually a little bit. It's got the same overall vibe as something like Atlantean codexes, the Course of Empire. Again, these, big ancient kingdoms were a huge deal once upon a time, but now they're all just kind of, buried in sand and dust. So yeah, Goreguts, cool album. I think a lot of people are still scratching their heads on this one because it's like, well, is it going to be crazy again? It's less crazy. Did we want more crazy? In a way, I think it kind of gets overlooked a little bit in their catalog because people really enjoyed Colored Sands, but that wouldn't come out for years after this, and people still obsess over Obscura, whether they're worshiping it or trying to burn every copy of it that's ever been made. This one's just kind of there in between, but it is a good album. I do enjoy it. So yeah, Goreguts did put out some solid death metal in 2001 with From Wisdom to Hate.
All right, good pick. All right. This album, God, it gets me excited. Lost Horizon, Awakening the World.
There it is.
Swedish power metal gods. One of the best singers. Is he Kiska? I don't know. But Daniel Hyman.
He's not Kiska, but he's I'll tell you what, we'll say they're roommates. I'll give you that. Fair?
Yeah.
Him and Kiska can be roommates in like an 80s buddy comedy.
He's a good wingman, I think. Yeah. But this album is just, I can't remember how to say the guy's real name, but guitar player from Luciferion. This is his power metal project. And what you get coming out of the death metal realm is more of a speed metal take on power metal. I think their second record got a little bit more power metal than speed metal and a lot more symphonic because they had a lot more keyboards. But this record, the guitar work on here is outstanding, aggressive, hyper melodious, and their songs feel like speed metal. And then Daniel comes in and puts that his multiple octave range of singing over these endlessly catchy and aggressive songs. This is an absolute banger record. And we've been turning people on to this album through the channel, and they go to try to find their own copy and realize it hasn't been reissued in forever, and the CD copies are not cheap. So I don't know what to tell you. I got lucky. I found both albums in a used bin for under $10 a long time ago. That was when no one gave a shit, but now people are starting to give a shit, and it's sad. So someone needs to reissue this. This came out on Koch Records, Music for Nations. Yeah, I don't know why they aren't in rotation, but Logan, this is the one I was telling you, need to check this out. And Melanie, with your recent attachment to power metal, this should be on your top of your list right here.
Careful, Marty, you're going to ruin her street cred.
Oh, that's right. Oh, oops. Sorry. I mean, to know what I'm talking about, you need to go become a Patreon for Melanie, go behind her paywall and see her secret shame.
Man, she's only buying the power metal albums so she can rid the earth of them in a giant conflagration.
Yeah. Take that, stupid power metal. But Roger, I've never heard you talk. Is this anything up your alley, or is this a hard pass for?
I don't have that album, but I'm a big fan of the guy. Luciferion is
killer.
Yeah, killer stuff. And funny thing, back in the days, he was kind of saying in an interview that he was going full on with Luciferion, but then he didn't do any more Luciferion, so it was kind of weird. I don't know what happened to that guy, if he just stopped everything, but he was like going for a death metal career, and then it was Lost Horizon, and then it was nothing more. So it's kind of, he was a brilliant guitar player, so, or maybe still is, but I don't know. So
Everybody go check out Melanie's Patreon. Go to Melanie Loves Death Metal and sign. It's $1 a month, and she's putting out videos for just the community. So I'm teasing her because she's hiding her power metal shame behind her paywall, but it's only $1.
For $1 a month,
you can see
Melanie
Power-
call you a morbid fanatic, just like she called Marty.
Miserable farter. Yeah, I mean, was that what it was? Can't remember. Anyway,
I think it was meaty fanboy. I'm not sure what that
Right.
means, but
okay. So we got that one out of the way. There's more to come, everybody. Get ready to drink. Anyway, Roger, what you got?
I'm gonna slow it down a lot, and the first album by Morning Beloveds, just
There you go.
death doom in the vein of My Dying Bride and all that good stuff. Really good band. Not their best album, but yeah, it's a very solid death doom album from Ireland, I do believe they are.
Yep.
So yeah, just a killer album out on Sentinel Records, kind of OG press there, of course. Just a style of music that it was kind of a style of music that died a little bit in the mid 90s, but in the early 2000s there was starting to get more kind of traction with the slower, doomier death metal influenced music. So Morning Beloved is a great band, but as I said, it's not their best album, but if you go and check out that band, it's a lot of good albums in their discography.
Yeah.
What's the
Roger,
name of that one again?
Yeah, Corey's asking what the title of that one.
All right. Where are we at? I'm confused. Alan, there you go.
We're over here. All right. Still got more black metal from 2001. But this one definitely highlights how things have gotten weird in some sectors. Then again, things were always weird in this sector. This is Psy has kind of their breakout album. It's actually it was on the End Records, so for a lot of folks, it's kind of the first time they had easy access to hear what this band sounded like. And on Imaginary Soundscapes, they sound crazy. It's a very cool album. It's got a lot of these very kind of organic, squishy sounding, synth effects and everything. The cover kind of tells you that, yes, you're in for a kind of a weird psychedelic black metal trip here. It works. It doesn't sound like it would work, but it actually is a really cool listen. Doesn't sound anything like what the band had done before. And they never really have gone back to this particular style either. Psy tends to change a bit from album to album, but there are times that they'll stick, with a theme, or come back to something. They have never done another album like Imaginary Soundscapes. I got to actually see them on this tour. Amazingly, they played a show in North Carolina. They were opening for Deceased. They were out on the road with King Valley. I'm guessing they were either, Supernatural Addiction, I don't think was out. They may have been warming up for Supernatural Addiction. Regardless, yes, it was really cool getting to see them play together. King Fowley's, always been, a huge fan of, Psy's work. He's been pen pals, with them and stuff, going way back. So yeah, it was a really fun show. Crazy that I got to see them on the tour. I really enjoyed this album. I had checked out Psy before this. It wasn't my introduction to them. I already heard a couple of their earlier albums. But yeah, this one is a fun listen. I don't go back to it and play it as often as I probably should. Again, and it's hard to describe what Psy does here, but if you've heard any of their other albums, this one will be completely different if you check it out. Really, really fun listen, though. Another black metal band going in very odd directions in 2001.
All right. Good pick. Psy I've always appreciated, but they've never clicked with me for some reason. I don't know. Weird.
I'm a Scorn Defeat fan, and then kind of drops off. But it has a lot to do with, I'm allergic to saxophone in metal, so
I usually am, which yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. And Scorn Defeat's a great album. I love that one too.
Yeah. Saxophones and metal is like the gluten I don't know. It's just I'm allergic to it too. All right. Well, let's the last of the power metal for me here. But man, this album is so freaking good. Gamma Ray's No World Order. I think Jürgen was talking about this record, said it was one of his favorite Gamma Ray records. And when he said it, I'm like, nuh-uh. And I went and I started listening to it, and I'm like, you know what? He's absolutely right. The production on this thing is great. The songs on here are absolutely great. Is it Land of the Free? I don't know, but it's right up there. It's right up there. It's that good. For those of you who don't know, it's Kai Hansen, Gamma Ray's Kai Hansen's band after he left Halloween. And he pulled out a very long career doing this stuff. Some really great music along the way. But are you talking about Gamma Ray, Mel? Anyway, yep. I don't know. You guys have anything to say about this one other than it's great? I really don't know what more to say. It sounds like Gamma Ray / Halloween.
Yeah.
Really well recorded.
Never heard it.
Yeah, I had kind of the same reaction to it as you, Marty. You know, when it first came out, just like, okay, it's fine. It kind of felt like maybe just another Gamma Ray album. Revisiting it later on, it's just like, no, actually, this one is a really, really good Gamma Ray album. But yeah, it didn't initially strike me as like, you know, on the same level as Land of the Free or Somewhere Out in Space. But yeah, once
Power
it's sunk
Plant,
in,
Power Plant's a
or
banger
Power
too.
Plant, yeah, that's a really good one too. Yeah, this one kind of for after those, this one felt at first like maybe it was a step down, but as it grew on me pretty fast, and realized like, no, this one they were Kai was just cranking out some really excellent German power metal on all of those discs. He was still going quite well with No World Order.
Right on. Okay, Roger, where are you at?
Well, we can go a little bit thrash. It was a very slow year for thrash for me, but there was one band. The band is pretty well known nowadays, but this era of the band has not been spoken a lot about. But it's Paradox Collision Course.
I got catching up to do. I only have the first two, and they're both awesome. I need to.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole catalog of Paradox is great. I mean, there's not a weak album. I did a video on them and kind of slightly ranked them as well. But great, kind of slightly melodic thrash. But they managed to variate the albums a little bit. Some are more melodic, and others are more kind of fast. This is a great album by Paradox, and for those who of course everybody knows who Heresy and the first one that eludes my brain now, but it's well known, but the kind of comeback era of Paradox is very overlooked, so but people should check them out because great German kind of power thrash if you want. The guy in the band is a great guitar player as well. Where the solos are always top notch. So and his vocals, he's kind of have the same vocals all the way through. He do kind of variate on the newer albums. Some are more harsher and some are more kind of cleaner. But regardless, he's kind of kept his voice within the Heresy kind of sounding. So yeah, just a great discography in general.
I have some catching up to do. I've been meaning to do it, and I just never have pulled the trigger. Gotta get on it. Too many people say that post Heresy stuff is great, and I love Heresy. That's the first Paradox I heard, and it blew me away. Good stuff. All right, Alan.
No. Yeah, 2001 for U.S. thrash, certainly. Weird year. Not a year you'd think of as thrash. You did have a lot of the German bands, though, putting stuff out in 2001, and that will be one of my next picks. I haven't been able to get a copy of this one yet, so we'll go to the pictures. Destruction. Yeah, this is not their comeback album. It's the second sort of comeback album with Schmier. It's called The Antichrist. And everything clicks back into place on this album for Destruction. The previous album, it felt like, okay, it's a good album. Schmear is back. It feels like, maybe they're kind of, just working out a few of the kinks, shaking off the rust a little bit. Antichrist, they immediately start, hammering away with songs like, Nailed to the Cross and stuff. They sound as every bit as angry and vicious as they did, 15 years earlier in their prime. We talked about this one, a lot when we went through the Destruction catalog earlier this year. I'd say this has to be in the conversation for best thrash albums of the 21st century. Yeah, I'm not going to say it's at the top. I haven't sat and thought it through, but I think this is on the short list. Everything they just do everything right on the Antichrist. The albums after this are fine too, but they pretty quickly start feeling like they kind of get a little bit into cookie cutter mode. Good albums, but they're kind of playing it safe. This album just proved they weren't just back, but they were back with a vengeance. They weren't just going to retread or do a watered down version of something they did in the past. They were going to make an album that could really stand up there beside things like Eternal Devastation. They wanted to make their mark, and I think they really did. This and a couple of other, like we said, Paradox has an album out, Destruction has an album out. There's a couple of more we'll probably get to here in a little bit. And I've never thought about it before, but I do wonder if this year 2001, with several kind of high profile foreign thrash albums coming out, kind of helped push the narrative for a bit of that thrash revival in the early 2000s. There are multiple times where folks have tried to be like, thrash is making its comeback, and it feels like it never quite happened in the US. But maybe that conversation was more driven by what bands like, Destruction, Paradox, and a couple of others were doing around this time, because several, bands got back on the map around this time with really solid albums. For my money, the Antichrist is the best of the lot, but some of the others are quite good as well. So, yep, there is some thrash happening. I agree with Roger overall. It's not the year of thrash whatsoever. But Germany might be the one exception. Maybe they were the one outlier country. They're just like, hold on a second. We'll cover the thrash. The rest of you go about your business. Pet your hairless cat and make some weird black metal while we just kind of thrash out Norway.
Right on. All righty. Well,
over to you, Marty.
You know what? I just looking at this CD. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but when this came out, I kind of fell into the hype. And I really like it. It's silly underground black metal. Nargaroth Black Metal Ist Krieg. A dedication monument.
I forgot about that.
There is okay, I make a comment. Everybody's saying M16. I said that album loses many points for the Surf and Bird cover. And everybody loves the Surf and Bird cover. Whatever. It's dumb.
Right here,
should have done it.
Eric's calling you out right now.
I am false then, because yuck, that soured my stomach. But anyway, speaking of cheesy, this is cheesy. It's a cheesy record. There's some songs on here that are very dissonant but melodic and great, and there's songs on here like the title track that are silly and stupid, and you're wondering, is he serious? I was always wondering, is this a serious black metal record? But even the silly stuff is so catchy. And his voice, Ken Wolf's vocals are so raw. I don't know. I just like it. I like some of his stuff, and even some of his newer stuff sounded pretty good to me too. But, yeah, I don't know. There was a lot of hype around this record, and the record was hard to get. It was an import, and it cost me money, and then it got ruined in the toilet disaster of 5 or 7 years ago. So. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I dig Nargaroth. What do you guys think?
I don't remember that album at all. I've heard it, but it's been ages.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have heard it. I know it by reputation, but I'm trying to remember if I ever heard it. If so, it's lost in the back of my memory.
Here we go. I don't know if he's talking about Surf and Bird, if you're talking about Nargaroth here, Jeremy.
Maybe
see, it was real. There was time, like there's some great the day Burzum killed Mayhem. 7 tears are flowing to the river. That is a long but really great fucking song. There's some great stuff on this record. Possessed by black fucking metal. Come on. Banger. Banger all day. Oh, Surfing Bird. Sorry. Surfing Bird. People, you hear yourselves? Anyway.
Marty.
Roger. Yeah.
The bird is the word.
Mow, 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 mow.
See, you're already doing it. You secretly love it. I understand. You're too ashamed to admit. It's okay. You can hide it behind your hatred of cover songs, and we'll pretend it's real.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Ben talk about or mention this album, and we all are waiting for it, so I'm just gonna fucking do it.
Mm-hmm.
The comeback. It's not a comeback, but it's comeback to good creator.
It's a good album.
Yeah, it's a good album. I really loved this album when it came out, but kind of going back to it now, it is not as strong as I felt it was back in the day, but it's still a really good album. They could have shortened it a little bit, but there are some absolutely banger tracks here. So, Violent Revolution is fucking awesome. So, yeah, a lot of killer tracks, a little bit too long for my taste. It kind of dies down a little bit in the end for me. Going back to it now, still enjoy listening to it, but it's a very good and return to form album for me, at least. I did not like Renewal, Cause of Conflict, and Rama and that era. I still don't like it at all. So even though I tried to revisit those albums, this was kind of in a way, when a band lost their way and kind of found their path again, you get extra excited, and I was that for this album for many years, but kind of it is not as good as it was for me back in the days now, but it's still a very good creator album in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that's a good take on it. I don't have a lot of history with that album, but it seems like it was a good, you said it perfectly, Roger. It's a good return to form.
Yeah.
And it's a little too long.
That just kind of happened. From there on out, all creator albums got a little long. I mean, that's just kind of been the way they did it from that point on. A lot of
thrash bands fell into that trap, and kind of, if they had stayed with the 45 mark instead of the 55 mark, a lot of the thrash albums would be better. It's just like that.
That's a great point. Why do you think thrash bands keep doing that? Because that is a very good observation. They all tend to make them a little too long for a long time now, and there's always one or two tracks it feels like are obviously, a step below the others. Why not keep them to the shorter?
I don't know if it's kind of giving the fans value for the money, or it's just like they can't scrap songs. They are not brutal enough with themselves to say that, maybe we should drop these two songs because they're really not top notch. Maybe they should have been a little bit, but I mean, old friends and sitting around having fun and thinking, this is a good song. We put it out, so it's kind of, I think it's a little bit like that. It's not that they try to make a 50-minute or 60-minute long album. It just happened, and they kind of don't want to cut back on anything. Just put it out there.
Oh, hey, Cold Void Nebula. We have someone from Twitch. Hey, we have one person watching on Twitch. Cheers. Welcome.
Cheers, Cold Void. Yes. Sorry, we don't type or interact over on Twitch just because we have a lot of screens open already doing stuff. But, thanks for hopping over here and commenting. Appreciate it. I
agree with what Roger said, and if you look at the 80s, bands were still writing albums that long, but there was just a different dynamic. The labels would they would cut a couple songs and put on an EP. So you would get 2 releases during that album cycle as opposed to cramming it all on one. And that's they've kind of stopped doing the single releases, and they just do one long. And when vinyl was at its lowest, labels were like, okay, you have 80 minutes to fill up. We want you to write more stuff. And a lot of these legacy bands just didn't stop doing it. They kept doing it. And I don't know what you guys think, but I'm not a fan of 2 LPs. I think it's pointless.
I hate it.
I love vinyl, and if you can't say what you're going to say in a record, I mean, a lot of bands do it. I get it, and there's some bands that are designed for the longer format, but just have to get up and flip a record. I mean, this is a lazy reason to bitch about it, but
No,
I mean, it's just
a
like
good reason.
it's. Did it need to be? I mean, the person from Twitch was saying Metallica did it. Well, yeah, and Metallica, if they would self-edit themselves, they would have maybe one LP worth of good songs as opposed to two overly bloated albums full of wandering, boring ideas. 3 good songs and a bunch of garbage. It's I don't know.
Hardwired's a good example of that. Exactly. I love half the songs on Hardwired. Well, I like half the songs on Hardwired, and the other half I'd never listen to.
Yeah.
Yep. If they have there's half of that 2 album set is really good for me.
Yep. And I did like, Creator, Out of the Dark into the Light, or is that the name of it with that cool EP? You got a cover, you got a song that didn't make the album, you got some live stuff. There was enough shit on there to buy that 12-inch, Maiden would put out a banger record and then 2 or 3 singles. The singles would go up the charts in England. I mean, Maiden were so big, their singles would chart. And there's something to be said of buying, new artwork and, there's like a song in an interview on here. What is this? I mean, there's things you can do to make these singles worth it. But anyway, we off topic a little bit, but I think that's another contributing factor, because they're not cutting songs off to put on singles anymore. They're cramming it all on one, and that's just the way it is.
That's a good point too. Yes. And yes, everybody, you can head over. Marty's going to start up his own Patreon, and our goal is to get enough money to hire him a record butler who can just stand next to the turntable and flip them for him every 25 minutes.
Yeah.
That's why you own cats and I own dogs. You got all the brains of this operation. You got great ideas.
He can just put his head back on the lazy boy and be like, "Now, Jeeves, side
Flip.
C."
Yes.
Yeah, but the problem with the double vinyls, especially with like labels like Nuclear Blast, when you put like 12 minutes on each side, you could put it on a single vinyl, but you spread it for 4 sides. It's just dumb. It doesn't it doesn't have to do with the listening or the quality of the kind of listening experience. That's just bollocks, in my opinion. You have to have a $100,000 stereo and a perfect room setup to kind of hear differences like that. I do like if an album is long, if they do 3 sides, like 20 minutes each side, that I'm okay about it. But for me, it's kind of, it destroys the kind of listening experience if you have to get up and flip every 50 minutes. It's kind of you break the ceremony as I think. Yes. So that's a reason, and it's also costing more. It's a waste of money and wax really to do it when you, at least like Nuclear Blast had a sickness for many years that they had to do the double vinyls. Regardless if it was a 40-minute album or a 60-minute album, it was 4 sides, so it was stupid.
But by recording it at 45 RPMs and only having 9 minutes of music per side and pressing it on 180 gram virgin black vinyl harvested by melting down a Brazilian plastic cow from 1963 that has a particular polymer in the plastic, it sounds better.
Okay,
I don't drive that nuts.
Thanks for
those arguments drive me nuts too. It's like, but you're listening to a Dark Throne album. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Jeremy's got a good point here too, and the only good example of double LP making sense to me is Live After Death. In the 70s and 80s, there were double LPs, but they were live albums. They were best of collections. They were something special. I mean, everything sounded great. It was on one record. If you wanted, this one's a double LP, a double live album, awesome. Or it would come in like 2 8-track cassettes. I think Kiss Double Platinum was like 2 8-track cassettes. It's
a lot of times they didn't charge extra. I mean, it was still the same price as a regular album because they knew it's a live album. You already have these songs, so you get the double live LP for the same price as one single LP sometimes back then.
Yep. And now it's commonplace. 2 LPs are just common. And I mean, I put them out too. I release them too, but that's just the artist submits an album and they want it out. It has to come out on vinyl. It just does.
Yeah.
Century Media's got to
to.
justify that $49.99 price tag somehow, guys.
Yeah.
You know, if you're only giving them one piece of vinyl for $50, kind of stings a little bit, but you can always say, hey, but you're getting two.
Right. All right. Whose turn is it?
That's a good question. I think let's see. Roger did Creator. Did we do anything after Creator?
No, we got off. Yeah, because it's your turn, Alan. Because we got talking about longer Creator albums and it.
Yeah,
went into this
Okay.
this diatribe. Okay.
Yeah.
This is what happens, folks. Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Right.
All right. Yes, there are some more. Obviously, some other big thrash titles, but I'm sure we'll circle back to those in a bit. I'm going to go in a different direction with 2001 release from good old Blackie and Wasp.
That's a good album.
Holy Terror. And this is a very, very good album by him. You know, for some folks, it's maybe a little late in the discography. Most folks, of course, gravitate towards the self-titled and the earliest stuff. But Blackie still did a lot of good albums, long after that. And Unholy Terror is a good example of one. This one still has, all the sort of, dark vibes that I always think Blackie's at his best when he sounds kind of pissed off, rather than kind of, whooping it up or in party mode. And this album gets that just fine. I do wonder how he feels about the cover artwork nowadays. Being born again and looking back and realizing you had an album with bullet holes shot into the cover of a Bible might be slightly awkward. I don't know. Maybe he's good with it. Maybe he's at peace with that kind of thing. That's quite okay too. But yeah, Marty, TJ, and the guys covered Unholy Terror on old live stream they did for the Album Club series quite a while back. And they covered it, in great detail. So I won't dwell on this one. But if you've never heard it, if you just passed on it because you figured that Wasp probably had run out of gas by this point, they absolutely had not. There's a lot of very strong songs on this one. It fits in really good with, say, the vibes around the Headless Children or Crimson Idol type era. If you like those albums from Wasp, this is a good one to hop back in and see what they were doing around the turn of the century. Wasp. Unholy Terror, not to be overlooked. Sadly, some of those Wasp albums from around this time have gotten a little hard to find. The days of getting them for $3 a piece on eBay every day of the week are long gone. So
long gone.
if you start looking around for it, it's not like it's going to cost you $50, but it can be a little annoying to find a copy, and when you do, it might be more like $15 or $20, even for a used copies. But it is a really good album. Hey, if you don't want to buy it, listen to it on YouTube or Spotify. I'm sure it's out there. You can check it out and not have to pay a dime if that's what you want to do. No problem with that.
Yep.
Marty, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say 117 people in here. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. All rule.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Very cool to see everybody. Well,
Good to
Marty,
see everybody.
you show another cool album, and I'll get over here and try to chat with some of these folks in the live chat.
Okay. Well, when I first heard this album, it sounded like a clone of, say, Bethlehem. But multiple listens, Silencer's Death Pierce Me. This is one of the end boss for depressive DSBM, depressive suicidal black metal. The singer, Swedish band, all sorts of twisted, screwed up shit here. His voice sounds a lot like the first guy from I can't remember his name. Lanferman? Yeah, from the dark metal era, and Dictus
Nicari.
Yeah. Very much in the same vein as that. It's just really super depressive black metal with super insane screaming. Absolutely you could hear the agony coming out of his voice on this stuff. I don't know what more to say. This isn't a style I gravitate to a lot, but when I'm in the mood for it, it hits the spot. And it's been a while since I've spun this, but it's just really super agonizing black metal, slow, depressive. Any thoughts, guys? Have you heard this one?
I've heard it, but it's been a while. I need to go back and listen to that one. I do like, Dig This.
Yeah,
The album, I
that's
think
great stuff.
I mean, yeah, that's fantastic. Insanely, but fantastic.
Yep. All right, Roger.
Gonna take a trip to Brazil and one of the best black metal bands there, Mr. Fire with Profanus.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Fire hasn't done a bad album, and this is a really good one. I think it's a very kind of overlooked album by them, and it might be an overlooked band. I don't know, but for me, Mr. Fire was a band I discovered with his second album. So, yeah, always been a big fan of these guys. Did actually play live in Oslo on Inferno a couple of years ago. That was awesome. Or a couple of years, so this is 5 years ago, but that was really cool to see. Yeah, great black metal from Brazil. Really have a unique sound, especially the synths. They always use that early 90s synths, even today, and not like orchestrated, but just like a couple of chords with synth, and then it's occult black metal in a way. So yeah, killer band.
Someone gave me a CDR of the world is so great that the person that made it doesn't live here. Is that a
Something like that. Yeah, that's a long title.
Isn't that a Mystifier album? Or
yeah, I think that's the.
I have that. I couldn't tell you a single note on it. I don't remember if I even got around to listening to it. But yeah,
that's probably my least favorite album by them. But Profanus is a really good album. Goethe Vikai's classics, but this album I feel is. I don't see people talk about it, and it's a shame because it's a really good album, in my opinion.
All right, Alan.
All right, yeah. Mystifier, it's a name I've heard for years, and I've just never checked them out. I need to get around to that. They're back on the list. All right, let's see. Time for something in more of a power metal direction. Someone mentioned this one earlier in the live chat, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's coming. I didn't stop and think about what my favorite album from this year is. This one would be, on the short list for sure. It is Camelot with their 5th album, Karma. So the deal here is that on album number 3, they had swapped out vocalists and brought in Roy Kahn from Norwegian band Conception. And that album, you can tell they're trying to figure out what they're going to do now. It's an okay album, but it's not amazing. 4th album, everything fell into place. They were now comfortable with each other, and everything clicked just fine. And on Karma, now that they know what to do, they take that ball and they fucking run with it and make a glorious. It's a U.S. band with a Norwegian singer and is very heavily influenced by European power metal. Gorgeous cover art. They leaned into the whole purple and gold kind of royalty color motif. Works really well. So, and in terms of band visuals, they were very much starting to get into their, black gothy kind of vibes look. Which that works. I'll take this over capes and elf ears any day of the week.
At least there's no Chris Angel hand antics in that photo.
About that.
Oh.
Thomas Youngblood up here in the corner is there's something happening here. Marty and I have
conjuring just a little spell.
Just a little bit. Getting a little bit of that magic dust in there. Yes. For those who have no idea what the hell we're doing right now, Marty and I have noticed that power metal bands are unable to take a group photo without at least one person doing something weird with their hands, directing them towards the camera.
Yeah, the puppet master.
There's got to be something there to invoke the magic. I just made a quarter disappear and you didn't even notice it. But
don't want to know where it ended up. He's working out the details of his magic, everybody. It's a rough,
that Constitutional
it's a rough road.
Tomorrow morning is going to be interesting. I'm going to make change. But this is a beautifully done album. It's power metal without sounding cheesy. It doesn't go too far off in the gothy direction where it starts to sound sad or sappy or anything like that either. It's got a couple of just eternal classics from their catalog. The opener, Forever. Camelot was always really good at opening with just, a soaring, galloping power metal ballad, and Forever fits the bill. The title track is absolutely timeless in this genre, no matter who the band is. They have a really pretty ballad on here, and I understand a lot of people consider the ballads the deal breaker for power metal. It's okay to cry, metalheads. It is okay to listen to pretty music that makes you tear up a little bit. You don't have to listen to it all the time. You get one ballad per album, and I think that's okay. The one on here is called Don't You Cry. Spoiler alert, it will make you cry. And on some of the pressings, there's a bonus track at the end where they redo the song as an acoustic with French, where Roy sings it in French. It's titled No Pleur Plaise. I did not take French in high school, and it shows.
He has 3 cats.
But as pretty as it sounds in English, it really does sound prettier in French. As much as we might make fun of the French for various things, they do have a pretty language, no doubts about it. So yeah, if for whatever reason you've never checked out Camelot, but you like power metal and you want to know where to start, this is perfect. This will show you the band in their prime, and then you can work forward and backward from this album, and you're set. So yes, Camelot's Karma, one of my favorite albums from this year, and possibly my favorite album from this year. I'd have to sit down and do the math, but I would not be surprised if it came out on top of the list when all was said and done. It is that good. So I'll go over here and get something out of my eye while Marty talks about the next album.
All right. Okay, we're going to talk about Norwegians that kind of lost their way a bit, but are still pretty good. And this is a band that remained pretty good after putting out 2 Amazeballs albums, and that would be Hades. They had to change their name to Hades Almighty. This is the Pulse of Decay, their final full-length album. They put out some splits here and there, but this is still pretty good. It still kind of sounds like Hades. They got just a little bit weirder. I don't even really know how to explain this. Yeah, Again Shall Be and Dawn of the Dying Sun are absolute, undisputable classics in my... Hey, Fish Cult, what's up? Millennium Nocturne is good. A little long-winded. Not as good as the first 2. And this is okay. Their riffs get a little catchier. They dumb it down a little bit. They modernize it a little bit. It's just... I don't know. Roger, have you heard this one? You've heard this one. You had.
I've heard it, but I don't have that album. It was kind of, I don't know. There was a lot of bands that changed a little bit too much for my taste.
This is right on the cusp of me not giving a shit. But
it's kind of borderlining. And back in the days, I didn't have that much money that I could buy everything. I had to be a little bit more, So that album was never entering, and I still probably will never enter my collection.
Yeah, I mean, I had to because I love the first 2 and the demo so much. I mean, I'm always going to give them. They've done a split with Drut. That's okay. The songs are okay. It's like 2 newer songs. It's okay. It's just not. They've kind of lost the muse. You know what I mean? But still worth checking out. I still bought it. Like I said, on Psycho Bitch Records. Isn't that like a short-lived Norwegian label?
Yeah, I don't think they did a lot of releases, but
no. There we go. All right, Roger.
We can stay in Norway and Cold Masterpiece of Pain, or Masterpiece, you could say, but mid-paced. Kind of a bit catchy black metal, I would say. This band really is at their best live. This music works very well live. But
I can see that.
Yeah, the first 3 albums are great, but live it's awesome. It was really a good project to have live. Also love the lyrics. You wouldn't know what they're singing about, but It's one of the guys' wife.
Yeah.
Write all the lyrics for both Toulouse and Cold. And she writes really good lyrics. I'm not a big lyric fan, but she writes kind of poems instead of lyrics, and they are awesome. I wish you could have, but it's impossible to translate poems really, because you kind of lose the I don't remember the term, but the kind of the rhythm in a poem if you translate it to another language. So, yeah, a really good live band. Did see them a lot around that period, and it's just that heavy headbanging black metal in a way.
Yeah, agreed. It's super simplistic, and I have a handful of Toulouse albums too. Some similarities, but you know.
Yeah, they are similar and same, but not, because they have some different tempos and different elements put into Toulouse. Toulouse is more, they did more experimental with that kind of different types. They did do an album with, saxophone as well, but I don't remember the title, but that was a totally experimental album. A lot of cool stuff on it, but it's just too weird.
Anybody wants to know further about that band, there is a documentary on YouTube. I think it's all closed caption for non-Norwegian speaking folks. Very cool, interesting documentary. Good stuff. All right, Alan.
All right, we'll stick with U.S. power metal for another round. Yeah, there was a little underground push in the U.S. to try to get some more traditional power metal stuff back on the map. The 90s had been a real wasteland for that style in the United States. Other bands from around the world were still doing well in Europe and in Asia, but yeah, that stuff was just absolutely persona non grata in America throughout most of the 90s. But you got into the 2000s, and there were some bands making a little bit of noise. Most of them didn't get very far, Camelot being the one big exception to that, I guess. But you had these other bands that were trying to kind of revive that older spirit a little bit. And a lot of them did pretty good albums that just kind of got overlooked. Marty, y'all did one on the Album Club several months ago. I think it was Crescent Shield, The Last of My Kind. Would be like a good example of what I'm talking about. And so would this band, Destiny's End. This is their second album called Transition. And this band sort of came out of the ashes of Hellstar, because it's James Rivera's project after Hellstar had kind of gone on hiatus. Hellstar, like pretty much every other band in that style, disappeared, in the early 90s. Hellstar was making great albums up through Nosferatu, but nobody was listening. So, Rivera got together with Perry Grayson, who's been in different projects over the years. And this Destiny's End kind of came out of that. And again, they got a little bit of attention. They were signed to Metal Blade, so it's not like they were just self-releasing these out of their mom's garage or something. And they made 2 albums, Breathe, and both of them had reasonable distribution. You could walk into some record stores and find the debut Breathe Deep the Dark on shelves. So it got some attention. They're fairly good. If you like Hellstar, you have the right idea. You already kind of know what to expect with Destiny's End. It's going to be relatively fast-paced, power metal, leaning into speed a little bit. Lots of very fluid, slick guitar work. James Rivera has, a very recognizable voice. He's very good at this style of stuff. This album, again, I'm not going to claim it's an all-time classic of the American metal scene. It's just not. Some people have started latching on to these early 2000s, U.S. metal albums, and have started again trying to, can we get a witness? Holler if you hear me. Let's hype these maybe a little bit more than they realistically should be. There's a lot of good albums there, but they're not going to challenge Omens into Battle or Manila Road's Crystal Logic. They're not on that tier. They're just not. But the Destiny's End albums are both absolutely fine. if you like that style and you just want to hear what bands were doing with that style in the early 2000s. The killer track on this one, it's the title track, which is the lead-off track. So the album starts red hot. It kind of feels to me like it quickly levels off after that, but it's not bad in any way. It's, just, the tracks kind of, come and go pretty fast after that opener. So yeah, if you're a Hellstar fan, Destiny's End is definitely worth your time to check out. If you like, some of this interest that's been shown in this stuff. I know, for example, like, Banger TV did a nice retrospective on some like overlooked US metal gems, and a lot of them were from around this time frame. Destiny's End is a decent one to check out. The albums have never been hard to find. They have never been expensive because they were put out on Metal Blade, and most of the population paid no attention. So they're still out there and pretty easy and cheap to pick up. Yes, good album. I've always liked James Rivera in most of his projects, so I was kind of a sucker for Destiny's End when they came out.
Jeremy asks, "Are we sure that isn't Foo Foo Hellstar?" I think I get what you're saying there.
Yeah, no, not quite.
All right,
Marty, what you got for us next?
Well, I got one more Norwegian pick that was on top of the world for me, lost it, and then found themselves again. But Ascension of Terror by Eternus. This is a band that started out amazing. I love their first, the EP or the mini CD and the first two full lengths. And then they kind of dropped the atmospheric Norwegian bolt thrower flow for more folky, for more of a brutal death metal thing. And this is Shadows of Old. The album before this one is really a big switch into that. Ascension of Terror continues on with it, but it's still a decent record. After this, they became uninteresting, completely uninteresting, I think. Just typical kind of Americanized sounding brutal death metal. And they came back in 2018 with Heathen, and now their latest album, Philosopher. Both of those albums rule. They're back on track. It sounds like the albums that should have came out after, and so the night became. And I'm glad that they're back. I think they realize the error of their ways, but this is still a decent record. It just isn't. I haven't listened to this since it came out, but I had to talk about it because I always have to tell people that the early Eternus and the new Eternus rules. But this is a great record. It's a good record. I shouldn't say it's a great record. It's a good record. It's just brutal death metal.
You see this album, everybody, don't listen to this one. Listen to all the other ones.
There's other ones that are better you should listen to.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a fair point, Marty. I mean, it's not that it's a bad album. It's just not what fans of Eternus wanted to hear that band doing. They went from having kind of their own unique sound to just sounding like 1,000 other bands, even if they did it fairly well.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, I think that's the one I hopped off the Eternus train on. Was like, hey, if you guys are really going to stick to this, I don't need to be here. Thanks. I'll go back and play And So the Night Became over and over.
Yeah,
I owned 4 copies of it at one point. That was too many.
Beyond the Wandering Moon's my favorite. That album is absolutely perfection.
That one's great too.
I love it.
Yep. They're side by side. I love them both. They're like my children. I love them both equally.
The Heathen album, I bought it on a whim and was instantly blown away how much it was back on track. In Philosopher, the new one, first couple songs are okay, but the album gets really, really good as it goes. Yeah. So
I need to sit down and pay attention to them. I've heard them, but I haven't really paid enough attention to them.
Yep. It's worth your time. Worth the investigation. Okay.
Definitely 2 great albums by them. So yeah, it's the same, I did see them live when Shadows of Old came out, but I left pretty soon because it was just boring in a way. And that album is kind of, I don't know, probably haven't listened to that in 15 years. Same with that you showed. I haven't listened to it for ages because
I haven't since it came out.
There are way better albums by that band to listen to. So yeah. Well, I'm going to US, and we talked about not being a lot of great death metal to come out, but Barrum, with Beneath the Columns of Abundant Gods. This is a fucking killer death metal album, heavy, brutal in a way, I would say. Old school, definitely. It's not the more kind of early 2000s death metal. This is just old school, great stuff, yeah. So if you haven't heard this band, still active or I don't know, but they're not releasing. They haven't released a lot of stuff, but they should, because I mean, these guys could write quality death metal, in my opinion. And I was listening to this the other day, and it's just banger, in my opinion. Kind of an overlooked gem in my, especially in that period.
I need to check them out. I've just another name that I've heard for years, and they've just never came up on YouTube for some reason. But I will fix that in the near future.
Yeah.
Good, great band.
Sounded interesting. Yeah. Marty, what are your take? You probably know them. Unlike
they're great East Coast death metal. Really heavy, good riffs. Nothing really more to say. They're just really solid, evil, kind of a little dark.
Yeah. What's also, the drum sound on this album is very organic. It's great drum sound in this period of time where a lot of, the digitalization of the recording process kind of killed a little bit of the drum sound on this album. It's where it should be, like old school sounding drums on it. So yeah, I really like that album. So
good stuff.
Yeah.
Good pick. All right. Alan.
All right. I overlooked one important album, but we'll do one more round of American metal before I circle back and correct the error of my ways. So, another legacy band that had already gotten back together and was doing quite well around the turn of the century was Jagdpanzer. They released Mechanized Warfare in 2001. Kind of a different piece of cover art for Travis Smith. Not the kind of thing you tip. I mean, when you look at the style, it's like, okay, yeah, I can see it. But you usually don't think of him doing like mecha type characters. But this is exactly what you want Jagdpanzer to sound like. I mean, if you know the band, they've been extremely consistent since they got back together, kind of mid-late 90s. Harry Conklin's one of the best metal vocalists of this style America's ever produced. And the band is just always kind of, churned along very well. There's a weird blip early in their catalog, but and they ended up disbanding, gone off from the scene for several years. But Mechanized Warfare is very solid. I meant to double check and see who played guitar on this, because they have a history of finding excellent guitar players and then having them poached by other bands after an album or two. So let's see who was playing on Mechanized Warfare. Here it is. So in 2001, their guitarist was Chris Broderick, who of course moved on to some other band. I think their name began with an M. Oh, Madonna, that's who it was. But yeah, that was always this is the only spot in the Jagdpanzer roster that's been kind of unstable over the years. Is every couple of years, they have to go find a new brilliant guitarist, because their last brilliant guitarist is moved on to maybe greener pastures. The band has never really gotten their due. I'm glad that they came back and have put out a series of very strong albums. They've cemented their legacy, but they've never become that household name that it feels like they should have been, up there side by side with someone like Metal Church in terms of bands everybody knew and was familiar with and worshipped. And they just never quite got there. Still around, did a great album last year. It's very much in the same style. And that's maybe the only knock against the band. At this point, they've done enough albums that they don't vary much. And so if you love the band, you're going to love all their albums. If you're just kind of like, Jagdpanzer's fine, you probably don't need every single album, because there's not that much variation. You're going to hear them, stick to their guns and do it well, but the sound may wear folks out after a while if they're not really into it. But Mechanized Warfare, churning along just fine in 2001. Another good band that managed to come back and do really good stuff. I sometimes crap on bands, that come back for just never being able to recapture that classic sound. But yeah, there are ones that do just fine. Destruction, we've talked about, have done great in their post Cannonball years. And yeah, Jagdpanzer's done great since they came back with Fourth Judgment, I think Fourth Judgment was their comeback album. Anyway, enough about Jagdpanzer. Marty, take us in another direction.
All right, let's go Germany again.
Always a good place to go.
Yeah, I listened to this album a lot when it came out, and own every record by this band. Morgan, Plague, Waste, and Death.
Yeah. Good call. One of the only ones I don't have by them from that era.
Yeah, this is a two-piece band, a guitar player, singer, and a drummer. I think this guitar player sings. I could be wrong there. Basically, a very heavy battery, Viking-era battery influence mixed with black metal. It's a good mix. What was the name of the band that this came before this?
Mayhemic Truth.
Mayhemic Truth. They put out like one album, I think, have a collection CD. Which
I'm not even sure it was an album. It may just be a collection of demos, but I
think it was called In Memoriam or something. Yeah,
In Memoriam. Yep, that's exactly right.
And then they moved on to Morgan and just put out a bunch of records that are varying production values, but all very similar, and most of them are really pretty good. I've enjoyed all of it. This one, though, was always a standout. I listened to the crap out of this one that came out, like I mentioned. Not the old Barbarian Wrath, or Rest in Peace, Hartmouth. Anyway, it's I didn't know if anybody would show this tonight. Roger, are you familiar?
I'm familiar, but I don't know if I have it on a physical copy. But I know it's a good band. So yeah, definitely.
The vocals are weird and they're kind of Quorthon-y. He kind of mixes his screaming voice is really grim, but his singing style is kind of a whiny version of Quorthon. It works great on this. It fit everything. All the pieces fit quite well on this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. For folks who aren't familiar, I mean, Bathory's the obvious reference point. Yeah. And they kind of, it's funny because Morgan kind of mixes the two eras of Bathory.
Yeah.
On any given album, you're going to have a handful of songs that sound like early Bathory, and you're going to have a handful of songs that sound like Viking era Bathory.
And some that combined.
Yeah, but it works. They are just, Quorthon was good at both of those styles, and Morgan is actually very good at both of those styles too. So I always liked that band a lot. I think you actually got me into that band back around probably 2001 because I got some of those albums from Wormgear back then.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, this was. Well, I went to pull this one for tonight, and it was the one I didn't have a physical copy of. So I'm like, maybe Marty will pull it. So I'm glad you did.
I actually interviewed them for Wormgear back in the day, if I remember right.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. All right, Roger. You're back.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it down. That speed-wise, Evoken, Quatus.
Good album.
One of the best like funeral death doom bands out there.
I agree.
Yes.
Yep.
The discography is just awesome, and so is this album. I really like my slow death metal, and Evoken is. With that kind of high lead they put in, that slightly clear guitar that they put up on like a atmospheric floating lead that they use is just awesome. Some bands try to copy it, but Evoken will always be the cool. I mean, of course, again, early 2000 magnificent cover. Which is terrible, but great band and great album. I can listen to Evoken any given day. Just one of those bands that always will have a big impact in my kind of musical journeys. That slow death metal needs to be done in a certain way work, or otherwise it will be boring. But Awoken
Yes.
always managed to keep it interesting.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right. Yeah, so a lot of bands that do that. It's okay, but halfway through the album, you're just kind of falling asleep. But Evoken always seems to get just. I think they keep a little more death metal in it, where it always feels just a little more menacing, whereas a lot of those bands just feel a little bit too slow. And even when Evoken's doing like, some more of the quieter parts, there's always, this just, kind of black atmosphere to it that keeps you interested. You want to hear what they're going to do next. Excellent band. And you took another one out of my stack.
Yes.
You're leaving me with nothing but power metal albums here.
Oh, damn. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. It's an excellent pick. Absolutely. Yep. Very cool band. Yeah, I know Marty likes them too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. All right, Alan.
All right. Well, made a grievous error earlier when I said Kamlet Karma was my favorite album of the year, because there's clearly only one album that can take home the gold for 2001. That would be Danger Danger's Cockroach. You thought they were gone. You didn't know they made anything after the second album.
But like a cockroach, they survive.
Like a cockroach, they survived all the way to 2001 and even beyond.
While you wax poetic about this band, I'm going to go urinate. I'll be
you
right
sit
back.
Right there and listen, mister.
I got to pee. It's bad. I got to go. I'll be right back.
He saved that pee break because he was afraid this was coming. But yes, Danger, pet band, just here for a bit of a laugh. But this album was weird because it was supposed to have come out in 1995. It was meant to be their third album. But, by the mid-90s, this style of, glam metal was not popular anywhere. And as such, the band kind of started having issues. The first thing, they screwed up and they recorded the album and then fired vocalist Ted Poley. And there are three things in life you don't do. You don't, piss into the wind. Hopefully Marty's not pissing into the wind right now. You don't step on Superman's cape. And you don't fire Ted fucking Poley, the greatest glam metal vocalist of all time. These are things you just don't do. Ted said, "I'll show you bitches." He sued the band and kept the album from getting released. So they had to go in and re-record the album with new vocalist Paul Lane. But by the time they did that, their label realized that it's way too late to be putting this fucking album out on the commercial market. And they just shelved it and refused to release it. So you had two versions of Cockroach, and neither of them ever got put out for sale. Eventually, the guys realized the error of their ways. They made the proper, prayers and offerings to appease Saint Poley, got things worked back out. And so Cockroach finally saw the light of day in 2001. So it's technically like their sixth album, because they had made a few albums in Japan in the meantime. But it should have been their third album. So yeah, it comes out much later. If you like the first two Danger albums, which I do, and I am unashamed of this, this one kind of fits in pretty well with that style.
Sure, we all do.
It very much quiet you. You missed half of Clash. You don't get to interrupt. It feels very much, like a hair metal album that should have come out, right there in the earliest 90s does. So yeah, and to complete the cycle of life, you can now get versions of not only the Ted Poley version of the album, but the Paul Lane version of the album did finally get released as well. So you can get two copies of Cockroach with two different vocalists. It's like the Eternal Idol all over again. And it's appropriate because Ted Poley is the Eternal Idol of hair metal. Cockroach from 2001 came a few years late. It was worth the wait. I promise my next one will be a good pick. It had to be done.
He's paving the way for a Danger reunion. They're coming to South Carolina. Everybody.
The tour will start and end right here.
The fan club president deems it has to happen. It's awesome. All right.
A little bit of fun. A fun almost metal pick.
I did not realize they had a third record. That was the big surprise here.
They have 7 records, good sir. They have 7.
Oh,
We have only unlocked tonight. We have unlocked the 3rd gate. There in the years ahead of Heavy Metallurgy, there are 4 more gates. Yet the seals eventually will be cracked and opened.
And then when that final,
and when the 7th one is, we all know what
cracked.
happens. The shit hits the fan, and we will all be in serious danger.
It's going to be a club album.
Danger
Shortly.
Oh, yeah.
danger.
Oh no.
You only get one tonight. That's all you people deserve. Only one tonight.
I can't believe they didn't put out 2 that year. That would have been great. Anyway, we're still in Germany. What? Go ahead.
No. I'm done. I had my fun.
Okay. This is my least favorite of 3 very great records that this band, and that's Germany's Nagelfar with an E as opposed to Nagelfar with no E, and from Sweden. But Virus West, their 3rd and final album. Alexander, I think was the guy's name, the main guy. He's a drummer on this band. He went on to form the Ruins of Beverast, which has a very similar sound to Nagelfar, but I think this Nagelfar stuff was a little bit more, especially their first album, a little bit more orthodox black metal sounding. The second being my favorite of theirs. Very awesome, heavy, twisted, great record. This here is good. It's just not as good as the first 2. I think it was probably their most distributed. And I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if I've heard as many people talk about this one, but I think what he did in Ruins of Beverast is better than this stuff. But still, this is a great, you put these albums on, you can hear where Ruins came from. Would you guys agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Solid record. But yeah, I'm a fan of the first one and a huge fan of the second one. But yep, Nagelfar, had to talk about them for a second.
For a second.
Sure. For just a second.
Yeah.
Danger,
5
cut into
minutes
my...
on danger, 90 seconds on Nagelfar.
He's still processing the danger,
Yeah.
The alert in his head. So.
Oh, I love it. I'm glad.
I may have temporarily broken Roger. I do apologize. He's a trooper. He can pull it together. No problem.
He's laughing probably because he has all 7 over there. He's got them. He just isn't. He has to join his Patreon.
Not to reveal that he owns both versions
I
of
can't
Cockroach.
say how they sound at all. So
you have to subscribe to his Patreon to hear about his power metal and glam metal problems.
Good luck in finding that Patreon channel. It's buried.
Next month on Melanie Loves Patreon.
Yeah.
She'll be like, ain't no business like monkey business.
Damn it, Alan, you MFer.
That is worth $1. Absolutely.
Yep, worth $1.
That's for $1 a month.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. All right,
Going back
let's
to
let
Norway
Roger
and,
right the ship here and get us back.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill the danger. Winded with 11 for 84. Okay. Of course, not their best album, but Winded did something unique, and it is a great album. And this was the first full band album, with the Olkusmolle guys, or as they Vride, as they are called now. And so yeah, just a great album with a lot of he drew a lot of influences from psalms, from Christian psalms. Really, he did read the notes for it. He did play accordion, so he kind of transferred them into black metal, really. So and put some good lyrics on it. Just a killer band. Was lucky enough to see them live as well once, and that was an absolutely killer experience. The vocalist was totally shocked by the response of the audience. It took him 3 songs to get into the kind of front man character. He was just standing there and what to do, because people were mental when they started playing. So yeah, And also, Vride did play at Beyond the Gates, and they played some Winder songs. I didn't see. I don't like Vride, so I didn't see it.
I never did either.
No, I
From
don't
where
like
they came. Yeah,
I don't like the vocalist. He's just too weak, in my opinion.
a little too black and rolly too, which some bands can do that great, and they're good at it. It's not. I have my Winder in my head. It's not as good, you know. Yeah, good pick though. And Alan.
All right, time to earn some of my true metal street cred back here. Kind of surprised this one has slipped this far into the night. I thought more. I kind of was leaving it for Marty, but he's had plenty of chances to pull this one, so I will not feel bad about scooping this one if he had it in his stack. 2001 saw one old vintage retro band everybody had forgotten back about make their triumphant return, and kind of kickstarted a real second life for them that was very much deserved. I'm talking about Manila Road.
Oh, shit balls. How did I miss that one? Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
I figured maybe it may have just slipped your mind because you would have shown it by now if you were going to. So it's like, I will go ahead and roll with it then. So yeah, Manila Road, kind of the best kept secret of American heavy metal from the 1980s. They kept the secret way too good because nobody listened to the band back then. It is interesting seeing, how beloved this band became, and they so deserved it. And I'm so happy they got there, because before this album came out and they kind of, had reformed, nobody knew or cared who this band was. I mean, I spent a couple of years there in the late 90s, and like around 2000, I was still, picking up old Manila Road albums. There were a couple I still didn't have. And you'd ask people about them and they just look at you like, who? What the fuck do you want that for? And it's just like, because it's awesome. And they're just like, who? It really, I mean, nobody knew who the fuck you were talking about. But yeah, they, got a second, chance to go for the gold, and they delivered a fantastic comeback album. Atlantis Rising
rules.
Yeah, so it's funny. It's in a way, it's a bit over the top, but in a good way.
It's so heavy.
It's extremely heavy. Mark sounds very aggressive on lots of the album. And, the band had always done, lots of lyrics drawing on things, like, Lovecraft, and Howard, Conan, Samaria, all those kind of, things. On this one, they just kind of put it all into a blender, and you get this crazy ass story about like, the Greek gods fighting Cthulhu monsters, and let's throw in some pyramids and some mummies and hell, maybe an alien or two. They just go to town. It's what if Thor and Zeus both had to fight Cthulhu at the same time? Let's put that to music. It's a really fun listen, for sure. More importantly, yes, it exposed the band to a wide audience for the very first time, and they capitalized on it this time. They really were able to start, putting albums out pretty quickly. They re-released some old material that had never really gotten into circulation, and folks gobbled it up. They started getting, more new studio albums put out, and they did it quickly enough. They didn't, sit there idle for too long. They really took advantage of it, kept their name out there. And, it's funny because, now we're 23 years later. This album is 23 years old, folks. The stuff we're talking about tonight, it may seem new to some of us. It's almost a quarter of a century old. And so, here we are 23 years later, and this band is just, absolutely loved and cherished by so many people. And in a lot of ways, it's thanks to this. This is the album that gave people a chance to hear them and gave them a chance to really make a career out of it for, most of the 21st century until Mark sadly passed away. So, this was, a very important album for 2001. Gave everybody a chance to finally check out one of the truly great bands out of American heavy metal legacy.
That was my first full Manila Road album. I got that as a promo.
It was for most people, and there's nothing wrong with that. 2
listens, but it blew me away. And the only other thing I heard before that was Jeff Wagner made me a mixtape of all his favorite Manila Road songs. And then I went back and devoured that tape and went, wow, okay. So then I was all in. And that's the only time I ever saw Manila Road 2 was during that era, that tour. They played the Classic Metal Fest in Kalamazoo, and they were amazing. They all look like, plumbers. Mark had short hair at the time. It looked like he's like a independent contractor type of guy, kind of picked up a guitar and just absolutely shredded on the thing. You're just blown away. This looked like normal old dudes, just absolutely kicking ass. And it was people. We did an album club on that album, and we go into quite lengthy dissection of it. It's a great record. It's heavy. It's modern. And one thing that happens in 2000s era Manila Road, they started doing a lot of the recording themselves. So the sound production is hit or miss.
That was always their Achilles heel a bit. Yeah.
That one's a hit. It's a really well produced, heavy guitars. They nailed it. It's a great record. Anyway, but yeah, what an album. Anyway, this album is pales in comparison to what you just showed, Alan, but that's fine. And
I needed a strong bounce back after the cockroach incident.
Right, the cockroach incident. I was really kind of impressed by this band. I haven't listened to it since it came out, but I picked it because I saw it on the list and went, oh, yeah. And that's Germany's Dark Fortress. Their debut, Tales from Eternal Dusk. Again, this is a very traditional kind of black metal sound, but they're a lot more musical. They don't just fall into just tremolo and or power chord bedroom black metal worship. This is a full band. It's a good production. This came out on Red Stream back in the day. It's a really well composed record, and actually their album after this is really good as well. And after that, I've completely lost track. They kept going, but I only stuck around for 2. But this one always was. I would always go back to it when I got it. It was in rotation. It was solid, atmospheric, well produced, and yeah, Germany has their own kind of vibe. It isn't a Scandinavian. They're not trying to be completely Scandinavian sounding like a lot of other bands did. It was its own thing. And I don't know. I like it. I have to probably I should put it next to my Black Dawn note here and listen to that tomorrow. So, banger. Okay. Devin knows what's up. Good job, man. You're doing for a young guy, you're doing all your homework. And I like that. It's what the younger generation, there's a lot of classics out there that aren't really spoken of. It's cool that people actually take the time.
Oh, yeah, Devin's got a huge, vast knowledge of heavy metal stuff, new and old. Yeah, it's impressive how much he knows. Cheers.
Everybody go check out Maze of Torment. He's got an awesome collection, and he hasn't posted as much lately, but he does. He's been busy, I think.
Yeah, he's still getting some videos out though. Yep.
All right, Roger.
Yeah, we can do some more slow stuff from Finland. Shape of Despair. Angels of Distress. Again, Death Doom, slightly Funeral Doom. Do have a female vocalist as well, so you have kind of the Beauty and Beast, but it's not like an operatic female. She has kind of a more, I would say, normal voice. It's not like I grew tired of that operatic shit. But Shape of Despair has always been very good at what they're doing and kind of stick to their guns all the way through. Didn't care much for their latest one, but I just think that's kind of a little bit that Beauty and the Beast stuff. It's harder for bands to sell that to me now than in this period. But some really good albums by this band as well. Of course, long songs and all that good stuff. Just good songwriting, good melody lines on it, and yeah, a great album if you like that type of music. As I said, the female vocals can be a little bit hit and miss, but that lady has a good voice.
Wade is saying, I believe Passy from formerly of Amorphous sings on that. Is that true, or is that a later album?
I don't. Let's see. There is no information on this album, so
which is always helpful.
Yeah, this is all the information you get on this album. So
right on. Okay. All right, Alan.
Right, yeah, I would agree with Roger. The Beauty and the Beast kind of vocals are a much tougher sell at
Tough
this
sell.
point than they
Yeah,
used to be. At the time, I mean, it was kind of a novel thing, but it's been done a lot, and there's not always much variation with it. It seems like it's a style that gets put in a corner pretty fast. So
Yeah.
you can only do it so many different ways. She sings, he growls. Those two crazy kids, end of story. All right, let's see. This one got mentioned in the chat earlier, and it's been in the stack. So let's talk about it. 2001, Manila Road, was kind of the comeback of an American icon. 2001 also saw the end of a different American icon. It was our last Sabotage studio album with Poets and Madmen. This was the only one they did for Nuclear Blast after spending a couple of years on small label Purgatory after being dropped from Atlantic back in the mid 90s. This one had John Oliver back on vocals, which of course was the big thing for most folks. I never minded Zach's vocals on the 90s albums. He has a different style of voice. Those albums were a different style of music. Zach was never going to make a Sirens Part 2 with the band. It just wasn't going to happen. But yeah, with John back on the mic, people were very excited to hear what the band would sound like. And the album it has its ups and downs. I've talked about it on here before, so I won't drag it out forever, but not everybody sees every episode either. It's another one of their concept albums, and it really did feel by this point they were kind of low on ideas. How do we make another 60 plus minute rock opera about some kind of lonely lost soul? And so they kind of turned to a real life story. This photographer who had taken an award-winning picture of starvation and war in Africa, and kind of built this whole kind of story around them. The picture is actually shown in the tray card. I won't show it because it is kind of disturbing, but it's actually hiding back here behind the insert. It shows a little kid in Africa who's laying on the ground about one step from death, and there's a vulture sitting right there on the ground a few feet from him, and you can just see the vulture's just sitting there thinking any minute now. So yeah, but it's pretty real. So they kind of use that until so the story becomes on the Sabotage album that the photographer has wins this big prize and then has this major mental breakdown and disappears, and everyone assumes he's dead, but he actually went to this insane asylum, but the insane asylum closed, and somehow they just forgot to move him out, and so now he just kind of lives in the insane asylum by himself, and that's it. That's your 68-minute story. If it seems like you've got to stretch that out a bit to fill 68 minutes, you are correct. It's okay, but like I said, it feels like they were having a little trouble working with the big concept ideas at this point. There are some very good songs on here, and there are some songs that misfire a little bit on here too. Obviously, the guitar work on here is okay. They were never going to replace Chris Oliva with somebody. There's only one Chris, and he had unfortunately passed away years before. So I feel like the guitar work maybe is a little sparse on here, and maybe part of that is again just John is very upfront with the vocals. There's extra layers of things going on with the piano and stuff too. So there are times it kind of rocks out, times it kind of doesn't. Like I said, it's a little hit or miss. When it came out, I was pretty disappointed in it. I felt like it was a bit bland. I revisited it here sometime in the past. I guess it's been a year or so ago. I found it, got it very cheap at a record show. Figured I'd give it another chance, and it is better than I had remembered. So it's not a total flub or anything. It's no Fight for the Rock. It's not on that level at all. And it's better than the album or two that came before it. Those albums were a lot less toothless than this one. But it still is not a great finale to the career of a really amazing and exceptional band in American metal. John and the guys have obviously been, doing quite well for themselves over the past 23 years with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra project, and power to them. They've made more money in 1 year from that than they probably made from Sabotage in the entire run of the band.
Enough they had to make an East Coast and West Coast version of the band.
Oh yeah. It's so big that it's not even one band anymore. They've got it's like the Avengers. You have offices on different parts of the planet.
East Coast, West Coast,
the band. But John has talked a lot over the past year that he has written material for a new Sabotage album, not a new TSO album, but he is putting together another Sabotage album because he wants, in his own words, paraphrased, he wants a better final album for the band to go out on. He's like, I'm going to write one more album. It's going to be fucking amazing, but understand that's it. We're going to do it. We're going to tour for it, maybe do a few festivals for it, and then we are done because I'm too old to do this shit anymore. John is very frank in his interviews. He's a character to listen to. So he's, I think, aiming for 2025. It's not going to happen this year, but next year we might get to hear John take one more stab at closing the book on Sabotage and kind of giving them a proper send-off.
Is he still playing with Trans-Siberian Orchestra?
He's still involved with it. I don't know what his involvement is. He never technically left Sabotage. He was always involved with them, even on the albums he didn't sing on.
Yeah.
He just, did a lot of he did a lot of writing, just not a lot of, on stage performance. So he's definitely part of the TSO organization. But yeah, he definitely is pretty set on trying to get, this one more really kick-ass Sabotage album in the can for fans, and then officially say that, Sabotage is done.
Yep.
Okay. So, it's been 23 years. We got to wait about, hopefully, maybe one more year, and it'll happen.
There's a good question here north of the Rockies. Is there any actual difference between the East and West Coast? Lineup chain differences. I don't know if they play the same set list, but you're only granted a small Christmas season, so you better make your damn money while you're not playing, Christmas shows in June. You're just not. But
it's different personnel. I'm assuming there's a lot of overlap in the music they perform, though. But there could be some differences though, since it is different people.
Right on.
It's a good question. We'll have to go check out an East Coast show and a West Coast show this holiday season and find out.
All right.
Yeah, I have seen TSO live before. It is a fun show. It's much louder than you might expect. I mean, when you go to one of those, all the grandmas and soccer moms, of course, and oh, I love the song on the radio. They're all standing in there covering their ears because they play freaking loud. It's not dialed down for the Suburbia set.
Wow, right on. All right, I'm up. Let's go to Greece, and this is probably not the band's best stuff, but I've always kind of liked this band, and it's Nocturnity. En Aurea came out in 2001, as did the Crucify Him EP. This has both of them on it. This is two brothers and one other guy. I don't know. They make their own armor. They're blacksmiths. So later versions where you see them on the cover wearing all this decked out stuff, they actually made all that shit themselves. And basically, these guys don't sound very Greek to me. They modeled their black metal after the Scandinavian style. But it's really good. It's really good. This early stuff here, this is the first full-length album. En Aurea, is their debut. And it's really solid. As they went on, they got more epic. But still very much black metal, rooted in black metal. But yeah, as far as Nocturnity goes, you don't hear a whole lot of people talking about him. Kellen, on occasion, he bought the latest or the second latest album when he was up here, actually, at a record store down south. But good record, good band, and more people should check them out.
Yep. I had forgotten all about them until you said they make their own armor, and then I knew exactly who you were talking about.
Right.
Yep.
Thrash Frederick is En Aurea, Enoria, and Crucify Him. It's The full length with the EP tagged onto it. Both came out in 2001. All right, Roger. How you holding up, Roger?
Yeah.
How you holding up?
I'm holding up really good. I mean,
Right on.
I've
Okay.
slept for several hours, so who needs more sleep?
Right.
Since
We're
Rick
already
was talking-
beautiful. We don't need our beauty sleep, right?
No, right. So, what a waste.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick was talking about Yatara from Finland with its great. I don't know if I would call them black metal, but the vocals definitely are black metal. But it's kind of a very riffy, kind of a headbanging music. It's really cool. It's kind of we used to play this a lot when we were sitting drinking because it was kind of a very head nodding metal, really grim vocals on here.
Who is that? I missed it.
Ayatara, Agattara. So
Okay.
kind of looks like that.
All right.
But yeah, especially the first 3 albums I think are really good, but they kind of didn't manage to reinvent themselves. It kind of get a little bit, samey after a while. But definitely go pick up a couple of Ayatara albums. They are really good, and it is very kind of mid-paced, headbanging and raw and very energetic music. Great music to listen to if you need some, an energy boost. We, as I said, used to play it a lot when we were sitting drinking and listening to music. It always kind of, yay, this is good shit. So, yeah.
Sorry, I was coughing my brains out. All right. Alan.
No worries. Let's see. What do we want to go with next here? Let's do this one. Covered these guys recently on my channel. Just did kind of a overview of their catalog. 2001 was probably when they got the most visibility since they were on Century Media for a little while. It's Danish band Royal Hunt, and they released this album, The Mission. This one, it's got kind of a loose concept based on the works of Ray Bradbury. So being on the bigger label, having a cool kind of sci-fi tie-in, everything just kind of fell into place. And yeah, the band got some recognition there for a few years before kind of slipping back a little bit below the radar. But they've still carried on and done really well over time. This one features vocalist John West, who's really good. Most folks associate Royal Hunt with DC Cooper. He was their second vocalist, and he came back later. He's the current vocalist as well. He's got an amazing voice, but West is really, really good as well. He also sang with Dave Feinstein on Feinstein's solo album Third Wish, which is one of those kind of just overlooked, really kind of kick-ass, metal albums that everybody, for some reason, completely has forgotten existed. But yeah, so if you're unfamiliar with Royal Hunt, again, you can check out a deeper dive on my channel. But they play progressive metal, but it's not annoying. It's not 18-minute long Dream Theater songs that make you want to gouge your eyeballs out with pencils or anything. Everything it's very song based. There are a lot of keyboards and synths. This keyboardist is like one of the main songwriters. He's kind of been the steady stable anchor throughout the band's history, but it's not just him showing off every song. There's plenty of room. They always have top musicians in the band, even if they do rotate out every now and then for other players. It's just a really solid album by a really solid band. If you like that style of stuff, or if you kind of like that style but you just are always worried about the bands going off on these long convoluted instrumental workouts, Royal Hunt's actually what you do want to hear. The cover, it kind of does look like some kind of cough drop or something. I'm guessing it's some kind of
after an anteater ate it.
some kind of futuristic ship. It's hovering above water there. Either that or it's a throat lozenger. But either way, it's still a weird cover. Beside we've said that, yeah, a lot of albums around 2001, computer art was not their friend. But it's a really good album with a cool sci-fi twist to it. So for fans of that style, Royal Hunt, definitely one to check out.
It's Dayquil. It's a Dayquil capsule.
Dayquil. It does. Actually, it's the right color for Dayquil too.
There it is. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Good call.
All right. Good call. You guys crack me up. Anyway, we're still in Greece, and this album rips. I've never seen anyone show it. It's the debut Mornblade album. It's self-titled.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
These guys rip. I don't know anything about them other than they're Greek and fast, punishing black metal that does go into these Greek kind of melody lines, some twin guitar stuff. Kjørvik Productions. I don't know. I don't know anything. Anybody else know anything about this band?
Never heard
someone
it.
knows.
It rings a bell. I may have something buried by them on the computer, but I'd have to dig.
It's like I said, I pulled it out. I'm like, oh wow, this is on the list, and I listened to it. I'm like, yep, it rips. It's really, yeah, they are Greek. Yep. Whereas Nocturnity kind of tries to sound Scandinavian. These guys, it just sounds like ripping fast black metal, but with cool Greek melody lines that come in and out. Crushing, it's good stuff. And again, Mornblade, I don't know how hard this is to find. It came and went, and no one ever really talks about it. And it's kind of a one you don't really hear anybody talk about. So I don't know. Check it out. All right, Roger.
Is it too early for tits or?
No, we're good.
Okay.
We always like those.
Akerkokke with
yeah.
Otto Mendes.
Folks were talking about this one earlier. Yep.
Yep. And there's more there if you want that. So yeah, great album. Kind of where they start to find their kind of footing. The first album was more, I would say, more a pure black metal album. This is turning a little bit more into the kind of blackened death metal style that they play now. Really good album. I really like Akerkokke, and I also saw that one guy mentioned, the spin-off band Voices. You could go with the Antichrist Imperium as well, which is another band that's spun out of this crew. There's kind of 4 or 5 bands that are in the same vein and share members. So yeah, go and check out Akerkokke and go into Metal Archives and do check the other bands, because there are 4 projects there which are killer. The drummer, I think, plays in all of them, but great drummer as well. So yeah, cool band.
All right.
Yeah, Trash. Yeah, they stopped using the suits. I saw them live, kind of when they came back and they had dropped the suits, and that was shame. But it was always cool back in the days. They do that with their suits and long hair.
Can you imagine being on the road wearing the suits and having to get them laundered? You can't just throw them in a washing machine. They actually have to be laundered. You have to take them somewhere, and yeah, that would suck. They probably said, "Fuck this! We're doing this again. We're not doing the suits."
Yeah.
All right, Alan.
All right. This one's been mentioned once or twice in the chat as well. It's Iced Earth had a horror show come out in 2001. It's an okay album. I'm showing this one because it's a bit of a mixed bag. This by this point, Iced Earth, I felt like maybe I don't know if they were just running a little low on ideas or getting a little lazy about it, but it's a good idea. On paper, this album should be really, really awesome, because, the idea was, okay, we're going to make it kind of, not a story concept album, but, each song is going to be about, kind of like, a classic movie monster. All right. That sounds fun. There's a good tie-in between horror and metal all the time, so this could work. But then what do they do for song titles here? Well, you have track number 1, Wolf. Track number 2, Damien. Track number 3, Jack. We also have tracks called Frankenstein, Dracula. It's like, could you put a little effort into it, for God's sake? I mean, it feels a little lazy the way they went about it.
Barlow sings his ass off on there. A lot of higher register shit. He's really going for it.
Well, Barlow's a good vocalist, so yeah. He sounds absolutely fine here. It's not that the music sounds terrible or anything. Again, they haven't wandered off into new metal, territory. They don't have Fred Durst opening for them on tour or something. But at the same time, I couldn't tell you what a single one of those songs sound like either. It's like, they're good, decent. They're average Dice Earth songs. They're about horror monster. The Wolf song's about the Wolf Man. I couldn't tell you a single riff from it. They never did really stick very well. Which again, it always just gave me the sense that maybe they didn't quite put enough effort into it. It kind of permeates some other things on the album. For example, half of this cover art by Travis Smith is really, really good. Like the upper half, this whole thing with their mascot kind of, looming over the big kind of haunted castle thing looks fantastic. The bottom half looks like he forgot to finish it and had to slap it together with construction paper or something. So it's like, I don't get what happened there. Once again, it's just like, really? Did you not finish the cover art while they weren't finishing the song titles? Right in the middle too. And again, some of these songs, they're okay. They just have lazy titles. But then right in the middle of the whole damn show, you get to track 4, The Ghost of Freedom. Because even, back then, John Schaefer just, it's 2001. Yeah, he's a little ahead of the curve on getting, the ultra patriotic stuff up and running. And that song just doesn't fit with the theme of the album at all. It's not about a, classic movie monster at all. It's, this, whole overblown patriotic USA, yeah, kind of thing. It's like, why did you put it on here? Just save it for the next album. Use it as a B-side. But like you said earlier, Marty, they're not doing singles anymore, and the song had to go somewhere, I guess. Yeah. But it's completely out of place. It doesn't. When you do a concept album, the whole point is it's a concept. You don't have a concept album with 1 or 2 songs thrown in that have nothing to do with it. That fucks everything up. So yeah, while it's some good performances on here, and some of the songs are okay, there's just little things about this album that have always bugged me. I got it when it came out, and yeah, it always just kind of irritates a little bit. I picked this up cheap at a record show maybe a year or so ago. I was like, I'll give it another chance. It's been a long time. Most folks tend to enjoy the album. Usually it's spoken of favorably by Iced Earth fans. Playing the games, it's like, yeah, it's not that it's bad, but it just, the songs don't stick, and just has these little annoying things, these little very cartoony hands and crosses in the foreground. This one stupid I Pledge Allegiance song stuck in the middle of, Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi. Song titles that, we need a Wolfman song. What do we call it? Wolf. Dude. Put some fucking work into it, for God's sake. So I think that's just what it irritates me at the end of the day. Great idea for an album. You've got, the talent to do it. You could have done it better than this. So it's not a bad album, but it's not as good as it should have been. That's my final verdict on a horror show. You can't love them all. I try to include a few albums that are worth mentioning that, I'm not a big fan of. And yeah, horror show, at the end of the day, I'll give it a C. I'll say it's an average album, but it's only an average album.
Yeah.
And now I'll sit here and fume about it for a minute or two while Marty shows us something he loves and worships that we can all agree is awesome.
Well, we have to go with the gods. The Chasm, Reaching the Veil of Death. This album rules. again, long run of Chasm records that
Mm-hmm.
just banger after banger after banger. Daniel Corchado and Antonio, drummer, or the core of the Chasm, and then, you know, have other guys that come and go here and there. But I don't know. I've always loved the dark riffs. Daniel's riffs are just dark and twisted, and his voice is dark and twisted, and the way he puts songs together are very unique. And I know he's always was bummed that the Chasm didn't seem to really take off like he was hoping it would, but I get it. People don't tend to gravitate towards bands that are unique. You know, I'm not saying that as a mean thing. I'm not trying to be a dick by saying that. Bands that have something different, that's a harder sell for some people. I don't know why that is. I mean, this isn't really world rockin' music. It's just dark, twisted, evil kind of sounding death metal. Murky, very murky. The production has always kind of been one of those things. Some records sound really good. Others are a little murky. And the murkiness kind of adds to the charm for me. This is just a really great era, whole run of records for the Chasm. And if you ever, back in the day, man, see these guys live, holy shit, they just absolutely destroyed. So good. I saw them like 4 or 5 times throughout this era. God, they just crushed every time. So metal. But yeah, Reaching the Veil of Death, Chasm. Excellent album.
Can I throw the most nitpicky flag in the history of flags on you for a second, Marty?
Yeah.
That EP came out on December 31st of 2000.
What? Oh my God, whatever.
I was looking, I was like, oh wow, why didn't I have that on my list? I just pulled it up.
I didn't get it until 2001. So there you go.
Nobody did, because it came out on New Year's Eve.
Right.
The mothership has it released on December 31st, 2000. So we will give it an honorary 2000.
That's got to be an honorary. That's not even fair. Foul. Jeremy, come on.
You couldn't buy it that day anyway, so
no, you couldn't.
Everything was closed. Yep.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, but a great band. But I think like the Chasm is one of those bands that you have to kind of invest a little bit more time.
Yes.
A lot of people don't kind of put in the effort or have the time. I mean, people are busy. They want something to just jam, but the Chasm is kind of, they are so unique that you have nothing to kind of compare them to. So it makes them kind of drown a little bit in that, because it is a band that should be way bigger in my opinion.
They should have.
Yeah. You're both absolutely right, Roger. It's a band you do have to pay attention to really get what they're doing. And Marty, you're right that it's the kind of band that people like, oh, they're so cool and innovative and unique. I want to buy a copy of the new Metallica album.
I'm going to get Coffin Rot instead. I'm going to go buy a Coffin Rot record. Yeah.
I'll listen to the Chasm on YouTube, but I'll actually hand you money for the 30th anniversary limited edition copy of Theater of Pain that comes with a used condom from Vince Neil's trash bin in the hotel where he puked out the window last night.
Rick says
I'm a little worked up tonight, and I don't really know why.
I love it. We love it. Rick says it's a good thing you're not judging the Olympics.
I think it's a bad thing.
Oh, don't get me started on the fucking Olympics. We don't go there. This stream will never end, and everybody, they're over, right?
Yeah,
we can all move on with their lives.
Finally,
right?
Then I'm okay. Enough said. Roger, please show us an awesome album from 2001 that you like.
Yes, we're going to Hungary and Serbliss. Grand Destiny.
I have them pulled too. Where is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know this.
Really cool band. Have their own sound. Do have trumpets and trombone.
It works.
Real stuff, and they also used. They toured with a trombone player, so he's kind of windmill banging between his. I do have a DVD, and he's kind of windmill banging between his blowing the horns. So really good. Especially, I mean, the first album was for me is still the best one, but that was kind of very unique when it came out. So
Sorry.
Yeah. that was a fun thing, I don't know if Alan has seen that breakdance incident, but
Yeah, even I got exposed to that bit of going on. Yes. The great Australian breakdance controversy of 2001.
Why hate a lady who likes to dance? What's the problem?
Gold medal, I say. Gold medal.
Entertaining.
Yep. Yeah, this is a good record. This is a good band. I didn't think I'd like the horns, but it's a nice vibe.
Yeah,
it isn't saxophone. Well. Oh no, it's not a saxophone. It's deeper, more. Yeah,
it fits better with fuzz guitars, and then
agreed.
Saxophone just cuts through everything, and
yeah. Ugh. Yep.
So
all right, good pick, Alan.
Let's see. What do we got left here? Getting towards the bottom of the stack. Okay. I want to show this one. I want to throw it out to the crowd because we need to mention it, but I don't have much to say about it. This was a big album for the year, a very big album. But it's a band that's never really clicked with me. But so everybody, thoughts?
Yeah, great album.
Opeth Blackwater Park.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to that album since the year it came out. Or
I probably haven't either.
After. Yeah.
I tried really hard to get into Opeth up to, I think this was the last one I tried to put some effort into. I mean, they're certainly not bad, very talented and all that. It may have just been another band where the contrarian streak in me started to take over. Like I said with Emperor earlier, I got really sick and tired of everyone claiming Emperor was, the second coming of Mark Shelton. I got really tired of everyone talking about, Opeth is like, what if the Beatles and the Beach Boys and Beethoven got together and had like the world's most musical threesome? Opeth's better. I'm just like, really? It sounds okay, but I don't know. It never really sunk in. So I'm just, folks in the chat have talked about it. You guys talk about it. It's a big release for the year, but I'm just like, it's a perfectly fine Opeth record. I'm not going to trash it.
It's a good record. It's great.
Yeah.
I don't worship this band the way I probably am supposed to worship this band. I don't know.
No, you don't need to worship any bands, but for me, Opeth was really good. It was something different. I started listening to them with the first album and but gradually I kind of lost interest because it got too proggy and got too kind of split up. But on the earlier albums, I felt that it was more kind of a nice flow to them. It wasn't that. I felt that he kind of started to, you have to do that part and you have to do that part. You have to, it got a little bit too kind of.
It's a formula.
I don't know. Yeah, it was too formula, and
it was their own formula, but they leaned on it every album. It's like
yeah. So it's kind of
here's a switch, here's a transition. You kind of could tell where it was going,
Because, the first 4 albums kind of shows a little bit like they kind of progress nicely, but then it's kind of just starts to get I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen the band live, actually multiple times, and then they were always good. But what you guys are saying is very true. That there are these just regimented sections that they're going to go through in every song.
Yeah.
They're going to start soft and kind of laid back in a 70s kind of prog groove, and then we're going to cry, and then we're going to back it off, and kind of drift until the demon has to fall. And it's funny watching the crowd too, because the audience never quite knows what to do. Everyone's trying to sit there and kind of do this thing for a few minutes, and then just like, oh shit, we're supposed to be like throwing elbows around here, man. Come on, motherfucker. And then wait, no, back it off, man. Chill, it's cool. Wait. Oh shit, get that bit started again. There was a random girl standing next to me at one of the shows, and after like 2 songs of this cycle, just watching the audience hilariously try to keep up with these changes, she just looked at me. She's just like, what are they doing? I'm just like, I don't know. She's like, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to Are we supposed to mosh? I'm just like, I'm just going to stand here and watch. I don't know about you. It was unintentionally hilarious.
I don't know if I agree with them, but the chat is leaning into the fact that way better than Danger.
To each their own. I WWTPD. What would Ted Poley do? He would not judge. He would understand. So I shall not judge those who prefer Opeth over Danger. It's quite okay. You're in my thoughts and prayers, and one day you shall see the light. I have full faith and confidence in Ted's ability to get through to you one day. You just have to be reached. Right. Somehow this just turned into an episode of like Dianetics. Sorry about that. Man, weird night.
Well, for me, Opeth, I was enamored with them just like everybody else was. And I still am impressed. But
should be, absolutely.
Yeah, every time I don't listen to Opeth often, but when I do, it's either My Arms Your Hearse or Ghost Reveries. Those are the two I go for. I like the first two. I mean, I like Blackwater Park. Of course, that's a huge standout. Still Life. A lot of great stuff, but Roger's right. There's a very, the further you get into them, a very evident formula that is kind of their own formula, but they lean on it a lot. And if anything, with the prog stuff, at least he's all, you can tell he's not going to be switching between vocals. Of course, this new album's going to be, look, we're metal again, everybody. Don't hate me for saying a bunch of bad things about metal when we changed, type of thing. But
we were always heavy. We just, weren't for a while.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good band, and we would have been remiss in not probably mentioning. I didn't pull it. I looked at it. I'm like, I don't.
Yep. Yeah. I always have like a little category of a few albums. I was like, no, I don't think anyone's going to pick this, but we should mention it for sure. It was an important album for the year, and I'm not saying it's a bad album at all. It's just not the band for me.
Right. I have to look up one thing. Yep. Okay, my turn.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta get this switched around. Okay. Well, I'm a fan of industrial type of metal stuff, and this band kind of enamored me with their debut album, Kali Yuga Bazaar. Their lead singer passed away, or something happened to that guy, and their second album came out in 2001 called Fire Walk With Us by Aborium, or Aborium. I don't know how exactly you pronounce it. The thing that makes this really cool is Attila from Mayhem sings on this one, and he fits perfectly within this style. This is the best of both worlds for this guy, because if you do any digging in his past, he had a pseudo skinny puppy-ish band called Plasma Pool. And it was a dancier version of Skinny Puppy, not as layered or great, but Attila's singing over it. His voice, anyway, even on D Mysterious, he sounds like Ogre from Skinny Puppy. You could tell he was an influence, and that's why I loved his performance on that. People are like, I prefer Dead. I mean, I get it, but I like the weird. I like industrial music, so I hear that and I'm like, this is a breath of fresh air in a genre that's about to get incredibly overpopulated. So you got one guy that's doing something a little bit different here. Well, anyway, this Fire Walk With Us. It's an Italian band with Hungarian by way of Norway singer, and it's really solid. The one after it with no human intervention is also really good. They get a little bit more electronic leaning on that one. This one's a little bit more, the foundation of this is black metal with, industrial embellishments. It's solid. It's well done, well produced. Attila crushes it on here. He gives the vibe you need on this type of stuff that just fits. No human intervention, really good as well. After that, I completely lost interest, didn't check anything out. They put out stuff afterwards. I haven't heard a single note of it, so I don't know. I don't even think Attila's with it anymore. Nick Irish, I pulled Thorns. I didn't know if anybody was going to do it, and I got to say I tried really hard to like this record, and I struggle. There's some good songs. It's a little too dry for me. It's a little too clinical. It's a little too much Seder on this record. I hate to say that. Does that make any sense? Which I love the early Satyricon first 3 in particular, some of the best stuff. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Well, here's this. What do you think of this? And then what do you think of this? It's a twofer.
Yeah, I do like Arboretum. I'm not liking industrial, but Arboretum kind of makes it work.
Yeah.
But kind of they started kind of losing me after the third album. They got too industrial, electronic. Kind
leaned
of lost
into that.
Yeah, it kind of lost the black metal feel to it, and I think I have 4 albums by them, but they're good and special, unique sounding. So cool stuff.
Yeah. I haven't heard it in forever. I had one of the 2 albums back when it came out and remember things like, okay, this is different. It's kind of neat, but I never circled back around to it. So yeah, I can't really comment. It's something I should revisit.
Right on. What about Thorns? What do you guys think of that? This people still say how much this rules and how great this is, and
people have been talking that one up in the chat all night. It was one of the first things mentioned when we went on a couple hours ago. Yeah.
I think you have to look about when it came out, when it was created. It's kind of unique and special, and
it is.
I'm not a massive fan of that either, but it's from that era. It's really a standout release, so it's kind of, I think, therefore it's kind of praised a lot more than if it had been released like 2010, for example. Just the legend of Thorns is bigger, I think, and better than the music itself in a way.
Which is funny because in the downloading file sharing days, I remember getting a couple of his early demos, the ones that were largely regarded as amazing, and half of the songs felt unfinished. There's songs without drums. It's just like it seemed half-assed to me. I mean, there was some stuff I'm like, this is cool, but there's no understating Snorra. Is that how you say his name?
Snorra.
He kind of revolutionized that picking style. They had all 6 strings and making sure all of them ring out, and he showed Euronymous kind of how to play that way. 100%. So
he was the originator of the Mayhem sound. So
yeah. All right, Alan, any thoughts on Thorn? Same thing.
Kind of the same thing. Heard it 20 years ago. Don't file not found. Please try again.
Right.
Yep. I don't remember disliking, but I just it's been 20 years and I don't remember it.
Right on. Yes, he was. He was in Mayhem. Anyway, Ruger, you're back.
Yeah, we need some more death metal.
Sure, we all do.
Not a very well. I think people know this name, but Catastrophic with the Cleansing.
Oh, have not heard that one.
Trevor Perez from Obituary.
Oh, okay.
Sounds very much like Obituary. There are some really killer tracks on this album that could have or should have been on a Obituary album, but it is the same style. Of course, different vocals, but it is a solid album. It's not fantastic, but there's 3-4 really killer tracks on this album, and that should probably have been on a Obituary album instead. But it's a good listen overall, but it has some highlights for me that really gets out the old Obituary. This was a period where Obituary wasn't kind of very active or doing much, I think. So he had to get some outlets for his riff.
All right. Never heard that one. Good pull, Alan.
Yeah, I've seen that album around a lot. I forgot that it had any connection to Obituary. Yeah. Let's see, what next? Getting down to the last few. Okay, here's a band I always thought had at least a passing similarity to Opeth, but I always liked a lot more. And again, this may just be I'm going to look for the underground version or something. It's an Italian band. I've always said November. It might be pronounced Novembre. I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
They've done a long series of albums. This one came out in 2001 called Novembrine Waltz. Yeah, very much again the Travis Smith style kind of cover art there.
I don't mind that cover though. It's actually
no.
decent.
This one's this one's a nice one. I guess Travis Smith for me is just very hit or miss. He does some gorgeous covers, and every now and then he just kind of drops the ball. But that's just my perspective. But no, this one's not bad whatsoever, and it kind of fits the music. Yeah, November, did kind of the same things Opeth would do. They'd have the transitions in the song where some sections would be a little heavier, some sections would be more laid back, more progressive sounding. They would use some different vocal styles in different parts of the songs. For whatever reason, I just felt like this band seemed smoother in those transitions, and the songs seemed more interesting to me. The level of musicianship is not as high. I would not claim these guys are going to outplay Opeth whatsoever. I like November's vocalist. He does have a pronounced, accent. I think with among European countries, some vocalists end up with more of an accent than others. Italy, they often have a bit more of an accent. And it also spills over into the lyrics a little bit. If you're reading through the lyric sheet, you can tell English not their first language, and that's okay. But it does make, there's some awkward phrases here and there, in certain lines of some songs. But I've always really enjoyed the band. They came up kind of around the same time as Opeth in the mid-90s. They've had a pretty steady career. As far as I know, they're still active, although it's been, I'm going to guess, at least 6 or so years since they've done an album. But yeah, if you like that, the same kind of general, approach, something, that probably started as a death metal project, quickly injected a lot more, older progressive stuff into it, then yeah, this is not a bad band to check out. You can find their albums around. Sometimes they're a little hard to come by, but they don't cost much because most people never got into the band. For what it's worth, this particular one, just to kind of give you a sense of some of the things that will draw on for inspiration, there's a cover song in the middle of the album, which seems like not the best place, but they actually do an incredibly good version of Kate Bush's Cloud Bursting, which is a beautiful piece of music. And they do a really, really good version of it here. They make it their own, and it fits in very nicely with what they're kind of doing on this album. So if Kate Bush passed through an Italian death and prog metal filter sounds up your alley, I here's your chance. I've got you hooked up. So yeah, a cool band, never really gotten their due. Someday I will get around to doing the November discography for an episode of Let's Talk Metal. But that day is not today. But that album, came out in 2001. Most of their albums are pretty good. If you stumble into one at randomly and want to take a chance on it for a few bucks, I can't think of any bad albums in their catalog off the top of my head.
All right. Well, I can be done in 2. Where you guys sit? But there's more I have, but I could be done in 2.
Oh, I have plenty, so it's no problem.
Let's see. I can do 2 or 3 more.
Okay.
Yep. I think I'm going to one more for 3.
I'm going to swing into some super underground weirdo sounding stuff. Raw. I'm a big fan of the raw stuff. And this is a Finnish band called Vulture. The guitar player is the guy from Azagal or Azagal. I don't know how he say it exactly. And he's also does another project called Weird. He's in some other stuff. This is just a super raw version of Azagal, and which I really like that band. This here is way raw. There's some really kind of goofy vocals on here. They I don't know, but then it goes into the raw, fast, really frayed sounding. Sounds like they recorded it in someone's bedroom, but there's just something catchy about it. And I'm a big sucker for the Finnish sound. Always have been. They sound nothing like the Swedes. They sound nothing like the Norwegians, which I think that's really great. You got 3 Nordic countries that are all connected and they sound nothing alike. This is weird. It's really underground. And I would say if you like Azagal, that's probably a good place to be. This here, this is the debut. They get weirder, or they get a little bit more refined and better as they go. But when I got this, I spun the crap out. This is a promo on Oaken Shield from back in the day. But yeah, I took right to it, and it just hit the spot. It just seems so conventional in its rawness, but yet they would do some weirdo things you just kind of had to chuckle about, like, are they being serious here or what? But it's good, raw, nasty finish black metal. Vulture with a Y. Monument of Misanthropy. Check it out. All right. Did I stump you on that one, Roger, or have you heard that one?
I've heard it, but I don't have it.
Yeah, it's probably not one that people are clamoring for a repress on.
Probably not, but it might.
Never know.
Happen.
Never know.
Yeah, so we're going to Sweden and some technical death metal from. I think they made 3 albums, Anata or Anata or whatever.
Good band.
Threads of Death and Dismay. Yeah, really good, well skilled, but not over technical. They kind of just they don't overdo the technical stuff, which is important for me when it comes to technical death metal. And also the vocals are not very deep. I think that is also often with these bands you have this very deep demonic vocals, but these guys are more kind of in the mid range of death metal, and really good band overall. I think it's 3 albums that I have, but I don't quite remember, but all are really good. So if you like technical death metal, you should check them out, especially in this era where it wasn't that many great death metal coming out. So yeah,
good pick, Alan.
All right. Yeah, folks have been asking for this one all night, so let's make sure we do get that into the mix. We said, Germany was making a statement in 2001 with thrash when nobody else was. We've talked Paradox, we've talked Destruction, we've talked Creator. Who haven't we shown yet? we haven't shown this one.
There you go, everybody. Get the skivvies out of your butt crack. There it is.
Yes.
Surfing bird or whatever the fuck it is.
We've got it. Yes. The bird is the word. And the word is that people like M16 quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's, it's a perfectly good thrash record. For my money, Antichrist is the German thrash album of the year. That's my personal preference. At this point, Sodom obviously had come a long way from their early days. I like their early stuff, but it is very rough for sure. But, they tightened up over time. To me, it always seemed like Sodom became the most American sounding of the bands. we got there for you, Logan.
Logan has been edging all night for this. Finally, his release. Woo.
We're finally going to ripper one off now, Logan.
That poor sock didn't see it coming. Anyway.
Ew. Anyway, where was I? Let's see. Yeah, Sodom always struck me as the German band that ended up sounding the most American by this, and especially by this point. Really from like Agent Orange forward, it felt like they drew more of their thrash influence from what the Bay Area bands did than Creator or Destruction or Tankard ever did. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's kind of, it felt like Sodom kind of, when they, got better and really developed their chops, they ended up sounding more like a product, of, American thrash than, sounding more like, the German thrash sound. They, of course, well into all the, uniforms and that kind of, the military theme, well developed by this point. And yeah, M16, we'll just throw it out there and let everybody enjoy it. It's a good thrash album, but it's, for me, I know some folks have said earlier, the Antichrist for them is no M16. That's perfectly okay. For me, M16 is no Antichrist, but it's still a solid thrash record. Marty, you want to regale us with another verse of Bird is the Word?
I'm good. Thanks. All right. More raw, nasty stuff. And out of the French scene, Mutilation were my favorite.
Yeah.
This is Black Millennium, Grimly Reborn. The shit is just ridiculous, man. You got him all crumpled up in that wheelchair there. It's funny. It's different. And then you got songs like No Mercy for Humans. He sounds like a deranged Muppet singing it. It's so great. It's so great. The guitar riffs are wandering. They wander in and out of time with the drums. The drums are, I don't know. It's lowest common denominator black metal. The French scene, this whole, it just kind of it is. And that's the charm of it. I like that Vlad Tepes stuff as well. But, Mutilation, I thought were just better at it. I don't know. And then a lot of the bands sound very similar as well. This is a good one. This is a good. They're starting to get a little bit more form in their playing. They're improving mildly, and I like the sloppiness of it. But yet there's still melody lines. There's still stuff. I like what's his name? Moynock. I can't remember. Something with an M. His voice is just ruptured, nasty Muppet screaming. I love it. It's great. Yeah. So when this hit in 2001, I spun this one quite a bit. In fact, out of a lot of the Mutilation stuff, this is a favorite for sure. So, yep. Crumpled mime in a wheelchair. Perfect cover for what that album holds. All right.
Oh, yeah. I've never checked out all of that band's discography. I know they're real early stuff, but don't know the later ones.
Yep. King Time is going to come get that back for Grandma. All right.
Missy, bring me my wheelchair.
Can't a weird guy in my makeup's using it right now. All right.
Yeah, staying in France and a very big band now, but they were definitely not big when this came out in 2001. That's Gojira with Terra Incognita.
The Olympic. He brought it back to the Olympics. Yeah. I see what you did there. Nice.
But this is way different. So this is kind of pure death metal, really. And great album. This and The Link and Master Series for me is kind of, you should have those albums, but the rest of the stuff is passable for me. But I do like a couple of these later albums, but or not the latest, but after Master Series, they had a couple of good albums, but kind of another band that repeats themselves a bit too much nowadays with their stuff. But this is a great death metal album, in my opinion. And The Link is better, but it's a good start for a band. But they were not breaking anything. A big scene until kind of Master Series in 2005 or something like that. But yeah, if you haven't heard it, go and check it out.
All right.
Yeah.
Alan.
Yeah, I've only heard bits and pieces of Gojira. Sometime I will check out their stuff. I just have never. I don't mind some of the stuff I've heard, but not something I'm going to run out and buy. Let's see. 2001. Got at least one more power metal one here to cover. 2001, we saw the beginning of what's become a pretty popular chapter in German power metal with the debut of Avantasia. This was Tobias Sammet from Edguy. Wanted to do kind of, again, more of a big sort of concept album. We've actually touched on several concept albums tonight, which hadn't occurred to me until we went through the list. But, by this point, Edguy had gotten away from their more sort of symphonic power metal beginnings and had gotten just into doing a lot more straightforward power metal songs. They were fine, but it wouldn't have worked as a project. You couldn't have done an Edguy album at that point that had, was a 70-minute story album. It would have felt really out of place in their catalog by 2001. But so he went and did Avantasia as just kind of a side project. The thing that made it work and really get it hyped up wasn't the fact that it was the guy from Ed Guy, because Ed Guy was popular, but only to a point. What made it work was that, again, he wrote out this, just ridiculously pedantic, generic fantasy story. I mean, it's all written out in this ridiculously huge booklet. I read the whole thing, so I want to at least make everybody sit through me flipping through the damn pages. Page after page after page after page after page after page.
Not enough pictures.
After page.
I need more pictures.
We all needed more pictures on this one. After page, we are not to the end of this goddamn booklet yet. After page, there's a lot of words on these pages. After page, and this is part one of the damn story. There's another.
And there he is in a frilly frock of a top.
Samat has always liked to play dress up. Absolutely. Oh wait, there's more words.
It looks like someone's goosing his ass on that picture.
Yeah. So yes, it is the most drawn out. Just there's a dwarf and a key and a dungeon, and they're trying to do a thing with a tower. It really does just feel like someone took the Dungeons and Dragons manual, shook it really hard, and poured all the words out onto a Scrabble board.
Well, there you go, Corey. There's your answer. He's asking, is it at least a good story?
No, it is. It really does feel like, what you everybody knew that one, kid in high school who would just sit in the back of, history class, writing out his own little fantasy novel because he had read, half of Tolkien and thought he was an artist. That was better than this. It is just a lame fucking story. It makes the Rhapsody of Fire album stories look like they were written by Faulkner, for God's sake. So why did it work? Because
Richie Faulkner writes. I didn't know that.
I weep for our country's education system.
Nailed it.
Yes, you did. Now I'm sad. Anyway, what makes the whole damn stupid story work is that rather than try to sing the whole thing himself, he had the bright idea to go and get different known singers to be each character. So basically, there's a gazillion guest vocalists, but they're not just doing random bits. If I remember right, Kai Hansen is the dwarf. So when you get to the part of the story that's about the dwarf, Kai Hansen sings that song or those parts of that song. And as such, it does give it the feel of being this kind of big production. It's like a big play, an opera, a metal opera. And that it does, it works. He actually went to all the time and trouble to round all these people up. And that had to be a nightmare with all these people being on different labels and having to get permissions and all that kind of shit. And spliced it together. And it works, and it's kind of cool. And it's, kind of become the running thing for Avantasia, that every album you're going to have, kind of a who's who of different vocalists, come in, and, do different songs with them. And it works quite well. But, yeah, so, if you ignore the story, and please, for the love of God, ignore the story. If you just listen to the music, it's a solid German power metal album. It will sit just fine next to stuff like your Gamma Rays, your Halloweens. And you have kind of the added bonus of, these, different, you'll recognize every now and then, like, hey, there's, the dude from Scorpions is doing this character. Hey, there's the lady from, Epica doing that particular character. It works out and is a kind of a neat project.
If you employ all the world's best power metal vocalists, you can't fuck up. I mean, you could write a shitty.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's what he did. I mean, yeah, he didn't just go out and get random, good vocalists that nobody knew. You can listen to be like, holy shit, that's Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper's doing one of the characters on this album, and it's just like it fires that part of your brain that says, hey, that's cool. And so you can ignore the story and just focus on, the fact that you have, a lot of these great vocalists all in one place doing this kind of big production. And it was crazy successful to the point that, Ed Guy folded a long time ago. And this became his main project going forward. And he's had a lot of fun with it. Some albums are better than others. But yeah, Avantasia got it started in 2001 and is still going pretty well. I think their last album was actually pretty decent, as I remember. So they're still getting the mileage out of it.
I only have 2 of their albums, and I like them. They're both fun. They're fun records.
Yep. There are some that are kind of weak. Yeah, I will not try to defend every album they've done. Not at all. But and again, it's some of them definitely go a little bit too Broadway-ish. So that's fair criticisms for sure. All right, Marty, show us something perhaps a wee bit heavier than Avantasia, and I'll go yuck it up with folks in the chat for a minute.
Well, I've got here, we're going back to Stockholm, and Mork Gierning, I don't know. Maelstrom Chaos. This is, well, certainly not the grim stuff I was just showing. This is very highly produced, perfect sounding, fast, maybe a bit dissection-ish, fast, exact, really well written, black metal, cuts into, acoustic transitions. I mean, it checks all the boxes, and it makes you wonder, put this on why the band wasn't bigger. Cause I mean, they're really doing everything right. I think the band wasn't bigger because there were bands like Dissection and Sacramentum and all these other bands in their scene that were, shimmying up a very similar creative tree, so it's still good. All the records I've heard from this band have been good. And This is probably during this time, the peak of their sound production and creativity. It's a really good record. It's a really good, solid record. Yeah, Mork Grinning.
And it's
Maelstrom Chaos.
And it's Mörk Grinning.
I meant to say that, but all these other people wouldn't have understood what I said, so I thought I'd just keep it. I thought I'd keep it American. You've heard my Norwegian, Roger. It's not good.
Yeah.
All right.
We've heard your English too, Richie Faulkner.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We can stay in Sweden. This is Diabolical with Synergy. It's death metal, but I mean, it's very well produced. It's kind of a little bit blackened riffing on it, but it is death metal. The vocals here is awesome. Killer vocals on this with this band overall. They turned a little bit more. I don't know, kind of, they lost a little bit of the death metal feel throughout their career, but this album and the album after is great. Did see them live once, which was absolutely awesome, but they had some, first the drummer, I think, cracked his snare drum, and then one guitar player, lost the string, and half the set was the sound drop out of one guitar, and it was just issues, but they just fuck it, and they played as they wanted to, and it was a great show. But it was just it seems like it's the thing that happens to this band. They never really got a real break, but they did some really good albums in kind of a, I wouldn't call it blackened death metal, but they have some kind of lead guitars that drew you more towards black metal in a way. So, but as I said, it's juicy death vocals and very well produced music.
All right, Alan.
All right, kind of looking over the list, seeing if there are other things we should bring up since we're getting to the bottom of the stack. Again, we've mentioned that, thrash, it's maybe slim pickings, but we've shown, there were some very good German thrash albums that came out. You know what I haven't heard a single person in the chat ask for 3 hours and 15 minutes later? Megadeth's 2001 album, The World Needs a Hero. Haven't seen it come up once, and that's, of course, one of your big four thrash bands. But we're not going to talk about that because nobody seems to want to, with good reason. This one has been mentioned once or twice, and again, we should at least tip our hats to it, even though not a personal favorite whatsoever. Slayer did make an album in 2001, and that's usually an event that people will stop and note. 2001, it was God Hates Us All. Not widely regarded as one of their better albums, but also not their worst album. Slayer, I think, was, they started slowly trying to dig themselves out of the Diabolus in Musica hole at this point. So yeah, worlds apart in terms of what was happening in American and German thrash bands are putting out solid albums or coming back storming and resetting their career with a really good one in Creator's Case. In America, we got The World Needs a Hero and God Hates Us All. Maybe one of those things caused the other. Maybe because God Hates Us All, we need a hero. Maybe the two albums are conceptually linked. I hadn't thought of this before. What do y'all think about these two entries from the Big Four for 2001?
0.
Yeah, I mean, God Hates Us All. I really don't remember anything from that album.
I had to go back and look at
Megadeth, I've never been a big fan. I do like Rust in Peace, but Megadeth, for me, I can't stand his vocals and his character. So it's kind of a band that I've never listened to that album and will probably never do. So, yeah.
Someone was saying up here, where is it? Carl says, holy fuck, Alan, Pentagram. Did they put out an album in 2001?
Did they do? I think they had Sub Basement, maybe. Let me double check. I pulled one, but when I looked, it was a 2002 release. Marty, while you do your next one, I will double check and see if there was something. And maybe I got two Pentagram albums mixed up.
So is it God Hates Danger Danger?
God can't hate Danger Danger because Ted Poley is God, and Ted Poley is Danger Danger.
All right. Well, I'm going to end this little soiree into my home state of Michigan. A band, I think, in the larger people look. The world's always kind of looked down on American black metal. Let's be honest. There's been a handful of bands here and there that have stood up and shined. And there's been a lot that have just gone unappreciated, overlooked. And this might be one of those bands. This is a band that was born out of the ashes of Masochist. They went on to form the band Summon. Masochist splintered into Summon and Winds of the Black Mountain, I want to say. I don't know if that's 100% correct. But, and also there's some Lucifer's Hammer, which also Lucifer's Hammer put out an album this year as well, but I didn't have an actual copy to show, so I didn't really want to talk about it. But anyway, this is Summon, No Thoughts from the Sky. This is on, oh God, Black and Moon. This was on Chaz's label. The guy, he was in the band. They eventually signed to Moribund, but this is thrashy black metal. They, back in the day, had the corpse paint and all that stuff. I've seen this band play a bunch over the years. I've seen them absolutely slaughtered drunk and go up on stage and crush. And they're just super fast. Their drummer, I can't remember the name. I can't remember what band he's in now. I can't remember the name of it. But this guy here was the drummer. He was just a blast machine. He was just amazing. But yeah, this was, I always enjoyed this band. Definitely thrashy influenced black metal from Michigan. They put out a few more records after this and it's kind of faded away. Sean is the singer in this. He is in the band Cavalcade now, which is, he's still singing black metal style vocals over kind of a weird amalgamation of metal styles and some groove in there. It's weird, but yep, Summon, I always thought they were great and always had to give them a chance whenever they put out a record for sure. Michigan black metal royalty, we'll say. So that's it for me. If anybody, Roger, you want to round out what you've got, or what did you find on the pentagram thing, Alan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. And yeah, thanks for pointing that out, because I had originally thought the First Days Here collection, I was going to mention that just as something that kind of got the band back on the map, but that came out in 2002. So then I pulled it off. It's like, oh, no, I don't have a pentagram. But yep, the chat's correct. 2001 Pentagram did release Sub Basement. This is not one of their better pieces of cover art. But this is from the Bobby and Hasselvander era. So basically, they were just a two-man project at this point. They had gotten themselves kind of back on the radar a couple of years earlier with the release of Review Your Choices, which once again was just Bobby and Hasselvander. But it was a decent album. It was released through like Black Widow, an Italian label that never had great distribution in the US. However, Jeff Wagner did a really good spread on the band in Metal Maniacs. And for a lot of people, it was kind of the first exposure to Pentagram. For others of us, it was just like, oh, thank God, this band is finally getting some attention. It kind of felt like, the Manila Road situation all over again. The Review Your Choices album, though, again, it was pretty good. It had a lot of really solid songs on it. The Sub Basement is kind of a weird one. It's got a very, very heavy production to the point that everything gets kind of hard to hear. It's almost, they're trying to be a little too bottom heavy. The other thing that throws this one off a little bit for me is with all these later Pentagram albums from Review Your Choices forward, and even on some of the other albums before that, Bobby always had a tendency to pull a few old songs because this band had a history back in the 70s. Yeah, and then they went through a very different lineup in the 80s. And so when the project was basically just down to him and Hasselvander in the 90s, a lot of the tracks on any given album are actually redone versions of their older 70s songs that never saw the light of day back then. The issue with the ones on Sub Basement is it's not some of their better 70s tracks. There's a couple of good ones. They do a good version of Bloodlust and Buzzsaw. Drive Me to the Grave is okay. But some of the others, it's just, After the Last, Target, these weren't the best songs on their old rehearsals and demos. And by the time this came out, I had a lot of CDRs full of old Pentagram rehearsals and demos. This was a band, one entire shelf back there is nothing but Pentagram demos and rehearsals and bootlegs and stuff. I got a lot of Pentagram stuff. I already knew a lot of these songs when this album was released, and these versions are just not that great, and they're not the best songs even on the old versions. So yeah, this album has never been a personal favorite. I felt like Review Your Choices, yeah, that works. This one, I think they really just were going a little overboard on the bottom heavy production, and they were picking some songs that just weren't the strongest in the Pentagram catalog to begin with. There's a few bangers and ragers on it, but as an entire album, I rarely play this one. I usually put it on, play a handful of songs, and I'm pretty happy to skip the rest. But yeah, Pentagram was a thing. And of course, pretty soon after this, Bobby would fuck it all up, piss off Hasselvander, who walked out. And Bobby would have to find some other guys to help him out when he would do the next album a couple years later. He always manages to find somebody to help him out. That guy literally was born with a horseshoe shoved up his ass because he should have been dead 10 times over before this album was ever saw the light of day.
Yeah.
It's a messed up story. We don't need to go into it here. But yeah, Sub Basement, thanks, folks, for reminding me that, yeah, there was an actual Pentagram release in 2001. I don't think it's their best album. It's not their worst either. And yeah. Right. Oh, well, I'll do one more quick shout out, and then we'll let Roger go through anything else he wants to. Last one I had pulled for the night that never gets mentioned. San Diego band called Cage made a very inauspicious looking debut album. And it's just called Astrology. Actually, this might be their second album now that I'm looking at it. They were not very well known at the time. It's decent US kind of style power metal. over the next album or two, the band would get a bit bigger, but they would drift into a much stronger vein of Judas Priest worship. The vocalist in here, his name is Sean. He has a pretty good voice in the Rob Halford style, and they would lean into that more and more with subsequent albums. This one's kind of interesting. It's not as dynamic as their later albums, doesn't have as much of the painkiller worship that later albums like Hell Destroyer really lean into. But yeah, Astrology is just kind of an interesting footnote on what Cage was doing, kind of getting themselves up and coming in 2001. And I will stop there and let Roger show anything that is still on his stack that we got to have included.
Yeah, I see in the comment, Christian was mentioned. I didn't pull that. I forgot it. Also, Vomitory did release, but my copy said 2000, so I put it back. But that's definitely an album that should be mentioned. And also, Devin mentioned this one, God Dethroned with Revenus.
That was on my stack too.
Yeah, not their best. But,
yeah, they're good. I saw them live during this round, and they were really good live. But
still a lot of good albums, I think. So, yeah, are you finished, Marty? Or
I've got one more I can show, but that's it.
Well, I can just pound through.
Run through what you got if you want. And
I have a French band called Anorexia Nervosa.
That cover always creeped me out a little bit.
Yeah, this is symphonic, intense black metal.
Yep.
Nowadays, I don't like this style, but back when this came, it was a great one. Way more aggressive than Dimmu Borgir, for example. More towards Karak Angren in a way nowadays. Finland, Munsaro, with the title Voimasta ja Kuniassa, as we all know how to pronounce. Great band, and
so you could have fooled us. We had no idea.
yeah, right. But yeah,
hell, I'm
band.
mostly Finnish, and of course I'm American Finnish, so that doesn't mean anything.
You're excused.
Yeah,
Melekes, Jin came out this year. Eastern influenced or Egyptian, kind of black metal Nile, if you want.
It's a second Prescriptor McGovern.
He plays drums, yeah.
And, show of the night. Yep.
Yeah, fucking killer drummer. So Norway's Cadaver or Cadaver Inc., as they call themselves on this. Pretty decent album. Yeah. So, of course, not as good as the first one, but still a good listen. Talking about US black metal, Avers Sephira.
Yep.
Battle Clarion, pretty intense black metal. The vocals are a little
machine, right?
I don't know, but that might be. I haven't listened to this much. No, it says Enochian Airstrike drums, so yeah, drum machine. So this band should be mentioned. Probably their last good album, but Arch Enemy. Wages of Sin, first with Angela on vocals. I really liked this when it came out, but I prefer the first three with that other dude on vocals. And of course, Enslaved's want to mention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
not my favorite. Yeah, not my favorite album at all with Enslaved. I don't like it. I think it's very messy. It's kind of all over the place, and it's not they kind of try to do something that they kind of don't manage until the next album, in my opinion. I know Jeff over at Gas Mask and Hand Grenades love this album, but I don't. Nope. I think it
sounds like metal guys pushing them. So I applaud their
they
try to
try
something different.
You push the boundaries, but it kind of fell through for me.
It sounds forced.
Yeah.
100%
another, I think, US band, Desinter, Demonic Portraiture.
Yep, Chicago band.
Yeah, pretty good album. I did spin it the other day, and of course we have to mention Flesh Crawl, Soul Skinner.
Good
did
band.
go more into the HM2 Swedish sound after the first two albums, sadly, but still a pretty good album. But again, My Dying Bride and Dreadful Hour, again, not their best, but still a good album. Marty's favorites, Cyclone.
Yeah.
It's okay, but
People dug it. People
I
dug it.
do like the other two albums way more than this one. Very obscure one, and the name shames no one's, they say, but Murder Rape from Brazil.
Oh, yep.
Take it out. Black metal, pretty cool cover. Do have a couple of albums by them. Witchery from Sweden, the band that the Seance members started, a couple of them started. Again, not their best album, Witchkrieg. If you want to check out Witchery and haven't, Witchkrieg is by far their best album. Rapture, melodic death doom, more in vein of October Tide and Catatonia early stuff. Really good band, but never breakthrough, really. It was on Relapse, but it's kind of and the last one is Azarat from Poland, Demon Seed.
Yep.
Their first album. Again, not their best, but it's a good starting point. So, yeah, that was all. I didn't pull. Well, I did pull Suspiria from Norway. Kind of a thrashy album, more kind of chuck vocals on it. Pretty good band, but again, a band that's repeated themselves and got really boring after.
Look at that cover. That is so indicative of the era.
Yeah, it's terrible.
A stupid font, a stupid Photoshop cover.
Fantastic singer, but again, they also kind of fell into the trap and just repeating themselves. So I think also Dimmu Borgir had that one album that year, but I didn't pull that. Yeah, not a big fan of the symphonic Dimmu stuff. So
Death Called Armageddon, I think, is the last one I bought by them I liked, but it was starting to be. Is that the name of it? Death Called.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I like them up to there. I mean, the early stuff for sure, but
yeah.
And Throne Darkness Triumphant, great album. I mean,
it's
some bangers.
It's a great album. That was 2001, I think. So, but I kind of I never go back to that album. I really don't.
Yeah.
But I have Dimmu up to here, so
yeah.
kind of.
You turn on the TV, you see him. It's like, oh, not again.
Yeah, and you always play on the festivals, in Inferno. I know I mean, they sell out because of Dimmu, so I understand it. But for me, it's just like, oh, not again.
Yeah. Yep. Alan, are you?
I'm done. I'm reeling off a few things over here in the chat. There's always going to be albums that we don't get to, but we can't cover them all. We didn't talk about Catatonia. For U.S. black metal, we didn't talk about Sarcophagus. So there's always going to be other albums that we didn't get to, but no, I'm definitely at the end of my stack for the night.
Okay, well, I just have what do we get? Okay, I just have this one, and really, I like this one. It came out, Marduk's La Grande Dance Macabre, nailed it. Yeah. It's good for what it is, but at this point, I think the best era of Legion is behind him. I mean, it's still good. And they put out one more record after this with him. World Funeral? I think that was the name of it. And then Legion left the band, or he got fired or whatever. But this is a good, solid record. But whenever I'm grabbing, it's Heaven Shall Burn, When We Are Gathered, or Panzer Division. Are my two go-tos. So,
yeah, but they kind of had 3 albums that was pretty much sounding just the same. At that period, especially
it was this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Especially the drumming. I mean, the drum patterns on all 3 albums are just the same. You have the ding 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 and ding 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 and
yeah. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. And for me, that you just need one of those 3 albums because they sound just the same.
Right on.
But a great band in general, you know. But they had like a hiccup there they couldn't pass.
Right. Well, it's a good time tonight, and it's someone brought it up. It's 2001 in my head. It's like it seems like it was yesterday, but yeah, 23 years ago.
Yep. And yeah, folks have alluded to it, and we did as well, but we probably should have made it a bigger point at the start of the show. December 2001 was the passing of Chuck. So yeah, that's been almost a quarter of a century ago, which, as folks are saying in the chat, hard to believe it's been that long since he passed away.
Yep. Crazy
And
cheers to his, family and whatnot and Relapse for keeping the memory alive. I mean, it is not hard to find death records, and they should be made available. And that's how we truly live on, is in memory.
Yep. There's a good legacy that's been established there and kept alive for sure. Yep. And thanks to everybody in the chat. Sorry if there's albums that you wanted to hear us talk about we didn't get to, but I think we covered a lot of ground. Tried to dig up a lot of obscure ones and cover some of the big ones as well. And it's been a really good time. Roger, thanks so much for joining us and digging into your awesome collection to show off some cool stuff. There's a few of those I definitely need to check out for sure that you've shown tonight.
Always a pleasure having you, Roger. Thank you so much for joining us and ruining your Saturday because of us.
Thanks for inviting me. I do enjoy.
You're always welcome.
I do enjoy this show. So it's fun. Always fun to be here.
Well,
and
thanks.
As Marty said, our beauty sleep is, we don't need it.
It's wasted on us.
Yes.
When you're this pretty, a little more sleep's not going to improve it any.
No. It doesn't make any difference.
I don't want to make everybody feel bad when they look at me.
John, have a good weekend. Say hi to Sue for us. And Sue will be joining us in, before you know it, it'll be time for her to make her return to Heavy Metallurgy as well. But for that, Marty, what are some show notes for next week? So folks know what's a-coming.
Review up on Monday. Ben covers the new Treldom, and Wednesday album club, we're talking about the new Ulcerate record.
Oh,
and,
nice. Okay.
Yeah. And next week, I believe, is Darcy, right?
Yes, next week, Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lives will be coming, and we're putting him to the test. He gets to, we're giving him the same treatment we gave Dwayne with Iron Maiden. He gets to pick 80 minutes, one CD's worth of Judas Priest songs, and that's all the Judas Priest he ever gets to hear for the rest of his life. So we're taking the rest of their catalog of one of his favorite bands and throwing it in the garbage. He's got to pick 80 minutes worth of songs, and that's what he keeps. Marty and I will do the same challenge. So we shall all three keep or reap the Judas Priest catalog and keep exactly one best of CD to hold near and dear to our hearts for the rest of time. Should be a really fun exercise.
I will once again take each of our lists and make Spotify playlists out of, and for everybody to enjoy. So it should be fun.
Darcy's been texting me today. He's already having a panic attack over the whole thing once he realized that it was a keep or reap kind of format. He's like, "Oh, I don't want to do this anymore." Like, too late. You're contractually obligated.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been another fun week at Heavy Metallurgy. Go check out Roger's YouTube channel. Links in the description. Go check out Let's Talk Metal YouTube link. Hopefully put your link in the description. If not, look up Let's Talk Metal. Ellen goes every Tuesday. Something new. And that's it.
If you type Alan Danger, it'll come to the top.
Cheers, everyone. We will see you next week. Have a great, great weekend. Roger, don't hang up.
Yeah.